This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
And America's horse has opened up. It's American Pharoah with that majestic stride, pouring it on through the stretch. Keen Ice runs into second. American Pharoah, the party continues as he rolls home in the Haskell.
It is Nest who is opening up on the field. Nest putting in a grade 1 performance today. Nest, much the best in this coaching club. American Oaks, she won by better than 10 lengths.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
And here comes Bigger Picture, storming through along the inside. What a trip for Bigger Picture. He and Can't Help Believing square off. Can't Help Believing takes the lead. Bigger Picture, they're nose and nose. Bigger Picture got up to win the United Nations.
They come for home, and Lucky Girl, Bella Bell now coming flying, 16 archers out of nowhere. Bella Bell, Lady T late on the outside, 16 archers, but Bella Bell's too good, and Bella Bell has won the San Clemente.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. It is post time for the show that launched a network, the Equine Forum, all presented by TwinSpires and all right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, happy to have you along for the ride with me again this morning, right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 216, XM 204, affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you are accessing your podcasts. Well, where does this weekend rank among the best weekends of the year, the best racing weekends of the year? It's certainly not an Oaks Derby type of weekend or a Breeders' Cup Preakness Belmont Travers type of weekend. It's not Fall Stars weekend at Keeneland, but I think it has to be pretty high on the list considering that this is the first time here in 2023 that both Del Mar and Saratoga are running together on a weekend. This is the first weekend of the Del Mar meet. Saratoga has been going for a little while now. Monmouth plays host to 5 greatest stakes, including the Grade 1 Haskell and the Grade 1 United Nations, with the Haskell being a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic. You have the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks at Saratoga today, and a great showdown between Nest and Clairiere in tomorrow's Chuvie. Even Woodbine gets in on the act with 2 greatest stakes this afternoon leading up to the plate trial and the Woodbine Oaks on tomorrow's program. Just having Del Mar and Saratoga in action together elevates this weekend. And then you toss in the Haskell Day and you toss in what's happening at Woodbine, and the whole weekend moves up on that list. And again, we're not talking like an Oaks Derby weekend or a Breeders' Cup weekend, but this is a pretty darn good weekend for racing fans. One of the questions that I'm going to bring up with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin when they join me later in the program for I Ask, They Answer, that comes up at 10:30 Eastern, is which return are you more excited to see this weekend? We've got a couple of big names coming back to the races. Is it Arabian Night in the Haskell this afternoon or Nest in tomorrow's Chuvie at Saratoga? And that's also my poll question on today's show. Which return are you most excited to see this weekend? Arabian Night in the Haskell, Nest in the Chuvie. Go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook to let me know your thoughts. Cast your votes there. If you don't do social media, you can always email the show, Mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know which of those horses you're most excited to see in their comebacks this weekend. And if you remember, Arabian Night was considered by many to be the horse to beat for the Kentucky Derby before he went to the sidelines after the Southwest win on January 28th. So I can't argue with those of you who say that Arabian Night is the one that you're most excited to watch this afternoon. But I'm going to side with Nest. And I'll tell you why. The intrigue which she created last year when taking on the boys in the Belmont, and then her showdown with stablemate Malathot and then Clairiere, who she squared off with in the Breeders' Cup Distaff, which, by the way, turned out to be one of maybe the best race. Well, I don't know. You can't really say the best race, but one of the best races of 2022. It's not often that races unfold the way you would like to see them unfold. The drama, the hype, and then the race delivers. And that's what we had in the Breeders' Cup Distaff at Keeneland last year. And the attention that Nest attracted in those races and then throughout her entire 3-year-old campaign really had me excited for what this season could bring if she's still the same Nest or maybe even better. And it's reasonable to expect that she will come back as a 4-year-old and be stronger and be even better than she was last year. And like last year, I think the Distaff division could be the most compelling division in racing. If Nest returns with a big statement effort against Clairiere tomorrow, even if she doesn't win, but let's say that the two put on a show through the stretch and Clairiere just gets the best of her. If that happens, I think we are set up for one hell of a ride in this division this year. Clairiere, at this point, as we sit here on July 22nd, is the leader in the Distaff division right now. And she has the advantage over Nest tomorrow. Not only is she in great form, but she's been racing this year. There is no layoff question for Clairiere. That won't be an excuse. Plus, she's defending champion in there, too. That helps. But when you look at the top female runners in our sport right now, there's no telling how entertaining this division could be throughout the remainder of the summer and into the fall. Search results ran a monster race against Clairiere in the Ogden Phipps. That was the most recent start for both of them. And figures to be tough, a really tough out for her rivals in today's Molly Pitcher at Monmouth. And I'm a huge fan of Pretty Mischievous. And if she continues to develop, along with fellow 3-year-old fillies Wet Paint and Hoosier Philly, who we're going to meet later today in the Coaching Club American Oaks, Pretty Mischievous not in that race today. Who knows what this division could look like later this year? I think all three of those runners are very talented, and I think Pretty Mischievous, in my opinion, is the best of those. She proved it in the Kentucky Oaks. And then there's the guy who is probably the greatest of all time when it comes to pulling a rabbit out of a hat in big races. D. Wayne Lucas. D. Wayne Lucas has Secret Oath, who has proven more than capable of competing at the upper tier, and on her day is capable of beating Clairiere, is capable of beating Nest. She's capable. So for me, I'm most excited to see Nest in her comeback race tomorrow. She might not win that race, but if she just comes back with a strong effort and says, yes, I am back. I am the same Nest that we saw last year, maybe even a bit better. Because we know Clairiere just keeps clicking along. She's really good. She was really good last year. She's the leader in this division now. So we're going to find out exactly where Nest is. But keep in mind, she's coming off of that long layoff. We've been waiting for this race for a long time. Clairiere has the advantage tomorrow. But if Nest proves that she is truly back, this is going to be a fun ride over the next several months leading up to the Breeders' Cup. Really strong division, really entertaining division. So for me, I will say Nest. That will be my answer to our poll question. Again, you can go to @HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, and let me know which return are you most excited to see this weekend. Is it Arabian Night in the Haskell later today, or is it Nest in the Chuvy? Arabian Night, the 5-2 morning line favorite over the Derby winner Mage. And Tapit Trice, by the way. Grade 1 winner. As good as Arabian Night was before he got hurt, he hadn't even competed in a Grade 1. But he's the 5-2 morning line favorite. His running style certainly suits it. But much like Nest, he's dealing with that long layoff. That's why they're both making these big comebacks today. That's the reason for the poll question. So let me know your thoughts on our social media pages or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. Speaking of Mage, the Derby winner, going to be joined in just a few minutes after this first commercial break by one of the owners of Mage, Ramiro Restrepo. And Ramiro has been, he joined me before the Kentucky Derby, and he's always a delight to talk to. But he has been such a great ambassador for our sport for a very long time, and now he has the opportunity to do it after being in the spotlight on the biggest stage, winning the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to ask him if he feels a little disrespected not being the favorite in today's Haskell. I'll talk to Ramiro coming up in just a few minutes. He'll kick off the show. Unsung Heroes comes your way at 8:35 Eastern. A special visit with Armando Reyes, who is the farm manager for Courser Thoroughbreds in Lexington. Armando has worked at iconic farms like Overbrook and TaylorMade. He's been around Stormcat and California Chrome. And Courser Thoroughbreds, the breeders of Arabian Night. I'll talk to Armando about what Arabian Night was like as a baby and what it's like for him and for the team at Courser Thoroughbreds to watch him be so successful earlier this spring. So that comes up at 8:35. 9 o'clock, I'll talk with trainer Conor Murphy. He gets set to saddle Foreign Relations in today's United Nations, looking for his first Grade 1 victory of his career. Maggie Wolfendale going to be with me, the longtime NYRA and Fox Sports analyst. She'll be with me at 9:20 to take a look at all the big races this weekend at Saratoga. And then Woodbine announcer Robert Geller coming up at 9:40 to preview the graded stakes today and then look ahead to the Woodbine Oaks and the plate trial on a really solid program tomorrow afternoon. 10 o'clock Eastern, Hour 3 begins as it always does with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe Kristufek will join me to give you 3 races you'll want to watch this afternoon. 10:20, Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. And at 10:30, I ask, they answer. Dale, Tim, they'll both be here to answer all of my questions and talk about the hottest topics in the sport today. All of that coming up on a very busy edition of the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
Here with Joe Brown Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, what would be a common misunderstanding between an insured and the insurance company?
Mike, one issue is a policy condition that requires notification when an insured animal becomes sick or injured.
Do you mean in life-threatening situations?
Not just then, but if a veterinarian is called in for treatment other than routine care, take for example if a yearling colt gets his foreleg caught in a fence and tears the skin. The coat is stitched up and everything seems fine, but later the coat develops a systemic infection. Then there is a serious situation that the company knows nothing about.
So the company needs to know, even if it's not a life-threatening situation.
That's right. It's a policy condition. The company has a stake in the health of the animal because of the existing insurance policy. The company might want to have its own vet examine the horse. In most cases, though, just a call or email is all that is needed.
For all your equine and general insurance needs, including farm owners, liability, homeowners, auto, and more, contact Nicholson Insurance Agency at 859-224-7080. You gotta know Joe.
There are plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet, with live racing Friday through Sunday and simulcast opportunities 7 days a week. Come out and enjoy the Summit of Speed, the Florida Sire Stakes Series, and a whole lot more. Watch the action from our Trackside Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms restaurant with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And Two Phils has taken the lead. Two Phils turns for home in front by two. Mage is coming down the center. Hit Show is there. King's Barnes gives way. Angel of Empire with powerful strides down the center of the track, but there's one furlong to go. Two Phils fights on, but Mage has taken the lead. Angel of Empires are rallying third. Time is running out to catch Mage. Mage digs down deep, urged onto the wire to win the Derby. Mage the winner. Two Phils was second. Angel of Empire was third, and Disarm came on for fourth.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires, right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you on this Saturday morning, July 22nd. That's the way it sounded from Travis Stone at Churchill Downs 77 days ago, when Mage provided quite a thrill for his connections, winning the Run for the Roses, the Kentucky Derby. That was on May 6th, and came back to finish third in the Preakness Stakes. Will return this afternoon in the Grade 1 Haskell, looking to punch his ticket to the Breeders' Cup Classic, but more importantly, looking to begin the second half of the season with a victory in that Haskell later this afternoon. Ramiro Restrepo is one of the owners of Mage. He is with me now here on HRRN. Ramiro, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mike. That call never gets old, so you should play it again.
It's funny because I was going to ask you if you still, even now, 77 days later, how often you will go back and watch the replay.
Oh, I mean, if not every day, every other day. I mean, you still, it's a dream you don't ever want to wake up from. So you're constantly reliving it. You know, they say that your brain, the waves in your brain, the electrons or whatever, it can't differentiate itself from a good memory from the present or the past. So, like when you rewatch something good, or like pictures or videos or whatever it is of amazing moments in your life, inside your brain, it feels like you're right back in it. So, it gets all those endorphins pumping and great emotions. So I watch it quite frequently.
You said when you were at the Derby, and of course we talked before he got to the Kentucky Derby right here on this very same program, and you had mentioned the fact that you were really representing your entire family, your 20-plus cousins, your 6 aunts and uncles, and all of the family members that couldn't be at Churchill Downs with you. So when he crossed the finish line, I can imagine it had to be extremely emotional, not just because it was the Kentucky Derby, but because of all of your family members that you felt like you were carrying on your shoulders.
For sure. Oh, I mean, and I also had my mother there. I had 2 aunts with me. My 2 uncles showed up to the race and did the walkover with me. My brother was there. So it was a beautiful, tight-knit circle to watch the race with. And, it's like an explosion of fire, 4th of July fireworks of emotion at that moment. And so many things are going through your mind, the race itself and your friends, your family. And, you see Nick Zito screaming when he wins it with, I don't know if it's Strike the Gold or Go for Gin, but he's telling the camera that he loves everybody, he loves the world. And Carl Navsker's route with Francis Jenner there. And, you grow up watching those things. So, you can totally, after the fact, you just really identify with that feeling. I mean, very few things can elicit that kind of emotion out of one's soul, and winning the Derby sure did that.
Well, he moves on to the Preakness and ends up running a good race there, doesn't win, ends up finishing third, 2 1/4 lengths behind National Treasure, and then returns today to kick off the second half of the season in the Haskell. So walk me through the past 77 days. You go to the Preakness, and then beyond that, from the Preakness to now, tell me what's been going on with Mage and how this decision was made.
Sure. I mean, for us, the Preakness, we still was classic placed. It was a race that, the race flow, pace dynamics kind of, didn't go our way. But, that's horse racing. It just, racing happens. Sometimes, you heard stories of, when Dr. Fager losing when they put in a rabbit against him. And I've seen Damascus win because he had a rabbit in the race. And just things like that happens. But that's racing. So there's no excuse. But at the same time, we're super proud of the performance. They never pulled away from him, but at the same time, he couldn't close. But, hey, it was a wonderful experience after the race. He got 17 days off, no track work, no saddle, and back walk, just turned down, sauna, steam room, spa life for him. It's kind of in full recovery. And, got back into training. He had only 3 works for the race, but they were 3 pretty strong works. So I feel that he's fit enough to, put forth a really good effort, and hopefully his talent makes it, possible for him to win the race. But we're looking for a really good race out of him that could give us the 5 weeks, and that was a big deciding factor. It was a Grade 1, the prize money, and it's at the Haskell. Those are the races you grew up watching, and this will be his 4th consecutive Grade 1, and the Travers would be his 5th consecutive Grade 1, which I don't think that near a 3-year-old has gone in 5 consecutive G1s. So it's an ambitious plan, but we hope he performs well in all of them, and honors his Derby win with some quality performances and hopefully some more victories. As far as for us as individuals, I mean, it's been a whirlwind of attention and kind of a lot more eyeballs coming your way, a hurricane of love, of well wishes, or congratulations, and that's super flattering. There's been opportunities for Gustavo to cut a couple more horses in his barn, a couple more opportunities for myself to participate at the sales that occurred after the Preakness to buy more inventory of racehorses. So those opportunities have been pretty cool. But just the attention and people wanting your time and to speak with you, and it's flattering. You need to learn to time manage those things. But it's been incredible. I mean, it's what dreams are, and just living it day by day.
So the Travers is definitely the next step, assuming all goes well with the Haskell today.
I mean, that's the minute he crossed the wire on the Preakness and we went back to the barn. I mean, that was I was like, let's go win the Travers. I mean, that was the first, our reaction, our reflex, our emotional reflex was, the Travers for us growing up. For myself, I think I've missed 3 Saratoga meets in my life, and I'm 44. Gustavo's arguably his greatest win outside the Derby was winning the Test. It's a super special place for him as well. So it was what we had, circled on our calendars. Sam Herzberg, one of our partners, is from New York, so Saratoga is another special place for him as well. The Travers, has been a huge target, and for us is how do we get him there to be as cranked as possible. And like in the Florida Derby, he put in an amazing performance. Just running a great second, but we knew there was more in the tank, and he moved forward in that time frame in the 5 weeks to the Kentucky Derby. And hopefully it's something like this where we know he can put in a really great performance today, and at the same time, there's more in the tank to have him ready in 5 weeks from now from the Travers. He'll be able to train at Saratoga for 5 weeks and get in a couple of works over the surface. So it looked like a fantastic plan to go Haskell Travers, and we look forward to running against great horses, Arabian Night, $2.3 million first-round pick, first overall type horse with an incredible pedigree that, funny enough, Gustavo bought his mother at the sales as a yearling. So that's how small the world is. Tapit Trice, Brad Cox's horse Stars, Mandela's horse Go Rocket Ride, all fantastic horses, and the rest of the field on down. This is what racing is about: competing against the best horses that are out there, and just the whole Sugar Ray, Duran, Leonard, Hagler, everybody taking turns fighting each other and putting on performances for the fans, the horse players, and the horsemen. It should be quite exciting today, and then on to the Travers. So we're in it to win it and give some good efforts.
Talking with the co-owner of the Kentucky Derby winner, Mage, that is Ramiro Restrepo, here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Ramiro, I'm hearing a lot of wind in the background as you're talking here this morning. Are you out galloping Mage as you're doing this interview?
I'm galloping myself. It's my first time on the Jersey Shore, so I'm on the boardwalk getting a little cardio in and a little sunshine before we get going. I needed a blowout this morning. This is my 3 furlong breeze to be easy for for racing.
This is your first time on the Jersey Shore?
Yeah, I've never been up here. Crazy. I've been to racetracks all over the world, all over the country, and I've never been to Monmouth, or this area. But I'm shocked at how beautiful it is, and can't wait to get around Monmouth and walk around the track and explore a little bit.
You mentioned some of the big names in this division, some of the big names you're going to square off with this afternoon in the Haskell, including Arabian Night, who is returning for the first time since being sidelined in January. At that time, there were many experts that had him ranked as the horse to beat for the Kentucky Derby, and as we know, he didn't make it there, but he returns here today. He is the 5-2 morning line favorite, despite only that Grade 3 win to his credit and this long layoff. You're the Derby winner. Do you feel a little disrespected?
No, I don't pay attention to any of those things. We had to tackle the Tiger champion 2-year-old Forte twice. Once right off of our maiden win in our second lifetime start. He beat us by 6. We had no fear coming right back against him in the Florida Derby, and he just got us by half a length. You can never really, focus on those man-made issues or man-made, events like what people opine on odds or
polls,
3-year championships and polls and such like that. Those are Mage or any other horses. They don't know how much they cost in the sales ring. They don't know what the odds are. They don't know what the pollsters rank them. They sort it out on the racetrack, and the horse is doing really well health-wise, which is the most important thing. And we know he has talent, and we know he's a real deal horse. So these are the things that I grew up watching: amazing horses taking on each other, and if people have nice things to say about these other horses, it's because they're warranted in one aspect or another, right? I mean, it's not being invented for fake. I mean, he showed amazing. That horse, Arabian Night, showed amazing talent in his 2 races, and cost a ton of money for a reason. And I'm sure there's validation behind that. And obviously, his trainers had a ton of success here at Monmouth. So, if that's what the odds makers say, that's fine. You can't be one as an owner or as a trainer. Like, you can't, fear these things. I mean, that's what, like, our sport before prize money and before putting graded labels on races, it was you match up your horse against my horse. You're a sportsman and you compete, and racehorses race. And I think so many times you get caught up in protecting your record and padding your stats and running in Nowheresville, USA to look impressive. But I grew up watching races in the 80s and 90s where, horses like Ali Sheba and that amazing crop, you run well, you run bad, you run great, you run good, you win, you lose. I mean, it's racing, but I think a horse is made a warrior from showing himself on the track and racing. So we don't pay attention to those things. We're really indifferent. No chip on any shoulder. You're just proud that you have a horse that can take you to a race like the Haskell and Triple Crown races and so on and so forth. And enjoy the ride, brother, because, we all know how hard this game is.
Well, Champion Forte is also pointed for the Travers Stakes, and if Mage gets past the Haskell today, all goes well, you said he'll make his way in that direction. That race could very well determine the 3-year-old champion. If you're able to beat him that day, Mage will have the upper hand. If Forte turns the tables and wins and beats Mage again, he's going to have the upper hand. What a race that's going to be. I mean, that's what this sport is all about at its core. You just said my horse is faster than your horse. You might get a chance to prove it in a one-race playoff, if you will, to see who's going to end up being the champion. I think it does come down to that race if both of them meet there in good form.
No, it would be lovely. I mean, and not only, us two, but everyone else. There's a lot of talented horses out there, and when you go, there's restaurants like in Lexington and other places like Malone's that you look up and they have the fantasy, those fantasy PPs and fantasy fields. And, I think horse players, fans, horsemen in their minds, like who doesn't love seeing that when you see, all great horses lining up or, what's considered good and great in 2023, right? Line up against each other and throwing it down, and hopefully this can continue next year in 2024 as 4-year-olds. And, all you can do is get it, keep your horse happy, sound, and hopefully he's training well and feeling well. And, you give everybody a treat and win, lose, or draw. As long as they come out healthy, we race again. That's what it's about. They're race horses. And I think that's the most important thing. And we just look forward to an awesome race today, and hopefully he comes out of it well, and we come at it again at the Travers.
Earlier, Ramiro, you mentioned the fact that after the Preakness, you said, hey, let's go win the Travers. That's going to be our goal of the summer racing season, and it's one heck of a goal to have. Considering that's the primary objective, why the Haskell and not the Jim Dandy? Talk about that decision.
Sure. The surface at Monmouth is a little speed favoring historically, and so is the track at Gulfstream, where we trained for a good part of the winter. The turns at Monmouth are a little more similar to the Thoroughbred Training Center where we are in Lexington at the moment. So between that and the 5 weeks between this race, the Jim Dandy would only be 4. The 5 weeks being able to train over the Saratoga track and get a couple works in, it just made a lot more logistical sense for us. We have other horses as well that had commitments in races, so we weren't able to move the barn earlier to Saratoga, and we felt that he was training really well and getting back into it off the layoff, and didn't want to disturb his pattern with an early ship out to another racetrack. We felt coming off the layoff, it was better to get him back into, filling up the gas tank on the racetrack on a surface that he was super familiar with, which is the one at the Thoroughbred Training Center, and which is an amazing surface over there. It's deep and safe. And we just felt that logistically planning out a long-range goal, it made the most sense to go to the Haskell.
Well, Ramiro, it's going to be a great race today, and we look forward to what the future holds for Mage and for you and for the entire team. Earlier in the program, I said that you have been a tremendous ambassador for the sport of racing for a long time, but now you get to be out there after winning on the biggest stage, and it just gives you an even bigger voice. Before I let you go, we've got about a minute and a half before I have to get to this next commercial break, but you are doing something very special and giving back to your alma mater at the University of Miami. Tell me a little bit more about what you're doing with Mage.
Well, cancer is a disease that affects many of us, friends and family alike. I really want to deflect this to Steve DeWolskin, longtime Florida horseman of Starship Stables, is also his. Cancer is a really passionate subject of his. He's donated a ton to the University of Miami Sylvester Cancer Research Center, and he's created his own fund on children's pediatric cancer. So between my alma mater, a fellow horseman, and a subject like cancer that is so, touching and has touched and is dear to us, has affected us in unfortunate ways. It felt like having this platform with a horse that has a lot of fans and a lot of following to be able to, donate and bring awareness to Steve DeWolskin's research fund. So, it's more about honoring those who have that affliction and being able to help Steve and his amazing program.
That's a wonderful gesture. Ramiro Restrepo here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Ramiro, enjoy the day. All the best with Mage, and let's keep it rolling. We'll see you at the Travers.
Hey, thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate you, man.
All right, you too, buddy. I think he has to feel a little disrespected, not only because he's not the morning line favorite, he's the Derby winner, but I think because most people don't give Mage the credit he deserves because he won the Derby, and they'll say, well, Forte wasn't in there. Forte didn't run in the Derby. He has to beat Forte, and he probably does. Forte's handled him a couple of times. Would Forte have beaten him on the first Saturday in May? We'll never know. There are plenty of people that think his win in the Derby wasn't legit because Forte wasn't in there. He's going to get an opportunity, if things go good in the Haskell today, to prove that he can beat Forte, and he'll get a chance to do that in the Travers, assuming all goes well with Forte. It would be fantastic. That is going to be one of the great storylines of the season and one of the great races of the season if Mage and Forte both arrive there. If they both make it to the Travers and they're both in top form, it is going to be fantastic. My thanks to Ramiro for being with me here this morning. And, again, his gesture of donating a portion of Mage's earnings to the Dwoskin Children's Cancer Research Fund at the University of Miami is really, really cool. All right, time now for your Legends of the Turf. When I come back, you're going to hear a special edition of Unsung Heroes. They're all special, but this one with Armando Reyes tying in to the favorite in the Haskell today, Arabian Night. That comes up next, and then Hour 2, which is loaded with more special guests. So stay with me after your Legends of the Turf.
The adage that all good things are worth waiting for was never better illustrated than when Alfred G. Vanderbilt's mare Geisha dropped her 1 month overdue foal on March 27, 1950. The newly arrived gray colt was by 1945 Preakness winner Polynesian and most fittingly was bemonikered Native Dancer. In an absolutely brilliant career, he won 20 of 22 races. He was endeared by the American public and affectionately referred to him as the Dancer or the Gray Ghost. Huge crowds surrounding the paddock when he raced, transfixed by the combination of a majestic bearing, icy calmness that he displayed before his races, and they rushed down to the rail to catch a glimpse of Native Dancer charging down the stretch to victory from way behind, eating up huge chunks of ground with his 29-foot stride. Native Dancer's reputation preceded him in his very first outing in April of his 2-year-old season. He was sent posted a 7-5 favorite and sprinted off to a 4.5 length win in breaking his maiden. A bare 4 days later, he came back to roar to victory in the youthful stakes at odds of 4-5. Never in all the rest of his days on the racetrack did he ever go off at odds any higher. He suffered a shin injury in the youthful, but he returned to the races in superb form 4 months later at Saratoga in August. He found himself in the winner's circle in the next 7 races in a row, the highlight of that streak being equaling of the world record for 6.5 furlongs in the running of the Belmont Futurity. Ankle problems delayed his first start in his sophomore season until April at Aqueduct in the Gotham Stakes 2 weeks before the Derby. He won the Gotham by 2 and romped home in the Wood Memorial by 4.5 to thereby establish himself as the overwhelming favorite in the run for the Roses. But that early May Day in 1953 was not to be his day, and the chart of that Derby tells the story. Chart caller's comment read like this: Native Dancer, roughed at the first turn by Moneybroker, was eased back to secure racing room, raced wide in the run to the upper turn, saved ground entering the stretch and finished strongly, but could not overtake the winner, although probably the best. Unquote. Rider Eric Guerin blamed the roughing at the clubhouse turn for the loss. Others pointed to the suspiciously large ankles of Native Dancer. At any rate, all observers agreed that in one more stride, Dark Star's victory by a head would have been instead another victory for the Dancer. After 3 hard races in 3 weeks, conditioner Bill Winfrey may well have expected to give his spectacular gray charger respite from the racing wars, but the Dancer was shipped to New York, where he won the Withers, and on the very next weekend he was on hand in Baltimore to nail down the Preakness. That was 5 wins in 5 consecutive weekends. Well, he finally got a break before galloping off to score in the Belmont Stakes and followed that with 4 more consecutive wins. Soreness in his left forefoot prevented him from meeting the 4-year-old sensation Tom Fool in the prestigious fall handicaps, and as a result, Tom Fool was named Horse of the Year. Native Dancer continued having physical problems as a 4-year-old, going posted only 3 times, but he did win all 3. He scored in the Metropolitan and Oneonta handicaps, packing 137 pounds in the latter. They were so impressive, he was finally accorded unanimous Horse of the Year honors in 1954. Through his bloodline, Native Dancer was responsible for a raft of outstanding thoroughbreds: Kauai King, Majestic Prince, Raisin Native, Coastal, Affirmed, Exclusive Native, Genuine Risk, Ruffian, and one of the world's all-time influential sires, Northern Dancer. That, my friends, is the story of the Gray Ghost, truly a legend in thoroughbred racing.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Colonial Downs summer racing season is here. Weekend racing returns every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with a first post of 1:30 p.m. Back this year is our popular 12% takeout Pick 5, which is now offered twice daily. We're also introducing the all-new Old Dominion 6, a $1 traditional Pick 6 with a 15% takeout. Join us for our biggest days of the season on August 12th for the Colonial Downs Festival of Racing, which features the Grade 1 Arlington Million, and September 9th as we wrap up the season with the Virginia Derby. Colonial Downs, rich history, bright future.
Iowa's Festival of Racing at Prairie Meadows takes place on July 7th and 8th and features 8 thoroughbred stakes races. 4 great stakes races on Friday night, followed up by another 4 on Saturday, including the $250,000 Iowa Derby, the Grade 3 Iowa Oaks, and the Grade 3 Prairie Meadows Cornhusker Handicap. Post time for the first race on both days will be 6 p.m. Central. Experience the thrill of horse racing at Prairie Meadows, your favorite place to play. Visit prairiemeadows.com for more information.
The thrill of world-class racing is just beginning at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action now with racing each Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, beginning at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, with Thursday twilight racing being added on May 25th. With more than $64 million in purses this season, you'll enjoy world-class racing and training facilities with the top turf racing in North America over the prestigious E.P. Taylor Turf Course. You won't want to miss racing at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit woodbine.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Heroes in the world of sports are not uncommon, oftentimes thrusting themselves into the limelight through unimaginable feats.
Back behind the ball, Woods puts it.
And in! He has done it! Tiger is back! Tiger is back on top! Tiger Woods, the 2019 Masters champion!
And breathtaking performances.
Here's how you count to 8. 3, 2, 1. And for the 8th time, college basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
But behind every great hero, there are others. Individuals who play a crucial role in the achievements of those we read about in the headlines. The ultimate team players, content to stand behind the curtain, embracing their place as a vital part of a sport's success. In horse racing, these are the unsung heroes.
Well, so often we see names like Bob Baffert and John Velasquez and Steve Asmussen and Bill Mott and Erod Ortiz Jr. in the headlines, and they're in the winner's circle, and they get all the publicity. But when a horse gets to the winner's circle, it takes a village, and the journey starts long before they even get to the racetrack. It starts when they are foaled. It starts when they are broke on the farm, and it starts really with the breeding. And nobody knows that better than Armando Reyes, who is the farm manager for Courser Thoroughbreds. They are the breeders of today's Haskell contender, the undefeated Arabian Knight, who returns for the first time since January 28th after being sidelined with an injury. He is back. He is the morning line favorite. And Armando Reyes had a crucial role along with the team at Courser in getting him ready in the early stages. And Armando is with me now here as this week's Unsung Hero. Armando, appreciate the visit.
No problem. You're welcome for call me.
I'm very excited to hear your story. Your story dates back to working with Overbrook and a horse like Stormcat, for example, and then spending time at TaylorMade. And for the past 5 years, you have been at Courser Thoroughbreds. Let's start with Arabian Knight, since he's running in the Haskell. Tell me more about Arabian Knight and what you remember about him as a youngster.
Well, I remember him since he was a baby, beautiful, nice baby, very active baby. Always when we bring him in, always coming jogging. So I like him since he was a baby.
How much fun was it to watch him break his maiden at Keeneland? He does it so impressively. And then to watch him win the Southwest Stakes. How exciting was that for you?
Oh, that was very exciting because, that was a very easy win. He won like for 7.5 lengths. So I was so happy about that race because he's a very strong horse, very talented.
I mentioned a name like Stormcat, who was one of the great sires in the history of thoroughbred racing. And then you worked with California Chrome, the Derby winner and Preakness winner when you were at TaylorMade. But when you get around a good horse, like those horses or like Arabian Knight, do they show you something that lets you know that they can be special?
Well, any horse is different, but they show you something different all the time. So you have to know how to treat the horse because some horses are very special and how you treat them. Like Stormcat, he was a very good horse. He never was like so mean when you handle him. But I've been working with horses and any horse is different.
Yeah, every horse is different, but there's something about the good ones, and you know that very well from being around them so much. Talk to me about your job and your role with Courser Thoroughbreds as the farm manager. What's your job over there?
My job is have to make sure all the horses are okay, make sure they don't have any problems, nobody is like hurt or something like that, It's a big responsibility here at the farm, but I got a nice help with the workers, and I think everything is well right here, right now, and we will see.
Was the farm excited when Arabian Knight won the Southwest Stakes?
Yeah, everybody was excited. Around the people everywhere was like excited because sometimes when I take a mare to the chest, to other farms, they ask about Arabian Knight because everybody likes this horse.
What do you remember about Stormcat?
About the Stormcat, I remember when, this is very sad time, but I remember when we have to put him down because his health problems, that was very sad for me because I take care for around 10 years. So it was so familiar to me. But also I had a good time with him because he liked to play with everybody.
Do you remember what his favorite thing to do was when he was playing?
Running around the paddock and rolling on the mat. Yeah, he looked like rolling when we had a lot of rain. He rolled on the mat. He get so dirty.
Do you think that Stormcat knew who you were when you would come up to him? And you said you spent 10 years together. Did he eventually get to know who you were?
I started over there when Eduardo Terrazas was the manager over there. And then he left the farm, and I worked also for Wes. I don't know. A lot of people know him. He was a manager at Three Chimneys.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I still remember a lot of people.
How about when you were with California Chrome, when you worked for TaylorMade? What was that time like?
Well, I wasn't there when he still was running, and
Right.
I remember when he won at Dubai. That day was very excited for everybody at TaylorMade.
Armando Reyes, my special guest in this week's Unsung Hero, does a great job as the farm manager at Courser Thoroughbreds in Lexington. They are the breeders of Arabian Night, who goes later today in the Haskell. Armando, I started this segment by mentioning that, we see all the trainers and jockeys in the winner's circle all the time, but the journey for a horse to be successful begins on the farm. So for a young horse being raised on the farm, what are some of the most important things that you need to do with them when they're babies?
The more important thing is check them, make sure they are fine, and how they are growing, because sometimes they're growing too fast. We have to keep on good balance, and that's it. I mean, just to make sure they are growing very well.
How did you first start working with horses?
I started at a farm this farm was Old Frankfurt Pike. That were 27 years ago. That was my first job. It's when I started to learning how to take care of the horses, because the farm manager over there, they told me everything, how the horse have to be,
Was that when you first came to the United States?
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
In Mexico.
What part?
Aguascalientes.
Did it take you a little while to get used to being around the horses when you first started working with them?
Yeah, that takes a little while, but if you pay a lot of attention and everything, you learn more fast,
What do you like most about working with the horses?
I like work with babies and foaling mares and everything like that.
Did you help foal Arabian Night?
Yeah.
That has to be special.
That is a special time, yes.
Well, really wonderful stuff, Armando. And on behalf of the entire racing industry and everybody here at the Horse Racing Radio Network, I want to thank you for everything that you and the team at Courser Thoroughbreds do for our sport, because without everybody that's working so hard on the farms all over the country, we don't have a sport. So thank you for that, and good luck with Arabian Night. Hey, if he wins the Haskell, what's that moment going to be like for you?
That I think it's going to be a wonderful time, a wonderful day for me, because I don't know, this is going to be a very special if he won this race. I'm very confident he's going to win.
Well, I love it, Armando, and good luck with Arabian Night. I hope he wins, and I hope he keeps going after that, too. And really appreciate you spending some time here with me this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Armando Reyes, who is the farm manager with Courser Thoroughbreds, and, again, the breeders of Arabian Night. And it means so much to everyone working on the farms when these horses go on and do big things, and you heard him talk about being there to foal Arabian Night, and it's a special moment for him if indeed he can find a way to pull it off in the Haskell today. He's already had a couple special moments with him, but they're looking for more later today, and he is 5-2 as the favorite on the morning line in today's Haskell. I'll be back right after this word from the sponsor of Unsung Heroes, Woodbine Entertainment.
The thrill of world-class racing is just beginning at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action now with racing each Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, beginning at 1:05 p.m. Eastern, with Thursday twilight racing being added on May 25th. With more than $64 million in purses this season, you'll enjoy world-class racing and training facilities with the top turf racing in North America over the prestigious EP Taylor Turf Course. You won't want to miss racing at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit woodbine.com.
If you know someone you feel deserves to be recognized as an unsung hero that does great work behind the scenes, email their information to me, and I will reach out to them and do my best to have them on these Unsung Hero segments in the weeks ahead. That's Mike@horseracingradio.net. And my thanks to Armando and everybody working so hard on the farms and getting horses ready to get to the races. They do a fantastic job. When I come back, I'll get you ready for hour number 2. It's a busy second hour of the program. I'll tell you all about it next. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
With every race, every stride and sprint, winning is everything, especially when you've dedicated everything you have to get there. But winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race is just the beginning of something bigger. An invitation to one of the most anticipated events in horse racing, the Breeders' Cup World Championships. Winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race turns a finish line into the start of your legacy, a starting gate into the world stage, one race into once in a lifetime. Winning earns you an automatic starting position in a Breeders' Cup race, entry fees paid by the Breeders' Cup, a nominator award of $10,000, and a travel award of up to $40,000. When it comes to cementing your legacy, winning a Breeders' Cup Challenge Series race is just the beginning. View the schedule of Challenge Series races happening around the world and learn more at breederscup.com/challenge.
Attention horsemen, the 2023 Claiming Crown is coming to the fairgrounds in New Orleans on Saturday, December 2nd. The 25th Claiming Crown features 8 races totaling $1 million in base purses, headlined by the $200,000 Claiming Crown Jewel at 1 1/8 miles. The deadline to make horses eligible for the Claiming Crown is November 18th, with entries to be taken November 25th. Eligibility request forms and more information is available at claimingcrown.com.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolate candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious smoke.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Hey, this is Bobby Newman. Join me every Friday afternoon to dive deep into handicapping the races. We'll cover the live action from some of the biggest tracks in the country, talk to some of the major players in the game, and hopefully make a little money along the way. You can also call the show to share your opinions, ask a question or two, or maybe just vent about some bad beats. It's Betting with Bobby every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Sirius 216, XM 204, or streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Time for trouble, pushed on for more speed as they race for the top of the stretch. English Conquerors right there, Foreign Relations 3 wide, Therapist 4 wide, Mount Rundo 5 wide, Tiz the Bombs in behind with limited liability. Another Mystery's trying to find a way through, so is Yamato. Wide open, heading for the 8th pole. Foreign Relations comes away with the lead. Limited Liability's a hard-charging second now. English Conqueror third toward the inside. Final 16th. Foreign Relations clear by 3. Foreign Relations got it in the Louisville. The winner by 2 in the end. Limited Liability was second. English Conqueror was third. And Yamato was fourth.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Travis Stone with the call of the Grade 3 Louisville. That was on May 20th at Churchill Downs, and a huge win for Foreign Relations, who returns in today's Grade 1 United Nations at Monmouth. That is one of the outstanding stakes races on the Haskell undercard. Conor Murphy, the trainer of Foreign Relations, going in search of his first Grade 1 of his training career, and he's going to be with me to kick off Hour 2 in just a few minutes at 9 o'clock Eastern. Looking forward to that visit, and a great story, by the way, as to how Conor was able to get started with training racehorses. Goes back to a wager, and I'll leave it at that, and I'll let him tell the story coming up in just a few minutes. I think you're going to enjoy that conversation. Poll question today: which return are you most excited to see this weekend? Is it Arabian Night in the Haskell today, or Nest in tomorrow's Shuvi? I told you at the top of the show, for me, it's Nest, because I think the Distaff division, especially if Nest comes back with a big effort tomorrow and proves that she is truly back, that I think that distaff division could be fantastic to watch the rest of the season. I'm going to ask Dale and Tim that question at 10:30 Eastern when they join me on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. We'll see which comeback they're most looking forward to. And speaking of Dale and Tim, if you think you have what it takes to compete against Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin, I am now giving you the chance to prove it, because the Showdown 2 starts on August 5th, and it very well could include you. One lucky listener is going to be drawn at random to draft a team and go head-to-head versus Dale and Tim. So if you think you can match strides with those two, email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and tell us why you think you have what it takes to beat Dale and Tim. Entries are going to be accepted via email only, with one entry per email address, and entries will close this Thursday, July 27th at noon Eastern. No other entries accepted after noon Eastern on Thursday. So if you want to compete against them or have an opportunity to compete against them, send me an email, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know why you think you have what it takes. We will conduct a random drawing of all entries on I Ask, They Answer next Saturday morning, and the one lucky listener will join us the following week, August 5th, to draft their 6-horse team. You'll draft 5 horses, 1 alternate horse that will be used in case one of your initial 5 goes to the sidelines for injury or illness. Again, the competition runs August 5th through Breeders' Cup Saturday, November 4th. Send in your request, and we'll draw that lucky winner at random on this show. I Ask, They Answer, 10:30 Eastern, next Saturday morning here on the Equine Forum. All right, hour 2 of 3 coming up next, right after a quick 10-second pause for station identification and your Visit Barbados racing update. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
The road to the Breeders' Cup stops in Oceanport, New Jersey later today, with 8 talented 3-year-olds squaring off in the Grade 1 Haskell with a berth in the Breeders' Cup Classic on the line. Kentucky Derby winner Mage takes on a familiar rival in Tappet Trice, and Bob Baffert looks to add to his record 9 Haskell wins when he sends out undefeated Arabian Night. The Grade 1 coaching club American Oaks is the featured event at Saratoga later today. Gambling Girl, Wet Paint, and Southern Lawn square off in the rematch of their last meeting in the Kentucky Oaks. Del Mar celebrates their opening weekend with a pair of turf stakes, the $100,000 Osanitas and the Grade 2 San Clemente. And that's your Visit Barbados racing update, brought to you by Barbados Tourism. Learn more at visitbarbados.org.
If you've been waiting to discover that sweet spot where peace of mind meets the time of your life, then it sounds like you've been waiting on Barbados. You've been waiting to experience a meal that makes you book a flight to have it again. You've been waiting for adventure in the sun, from the majesty of horse racing and polo to the thrill of surfing our playful waves. From the moment you set foot on the island, you will realize Barbados is exactly what you've been waiting for. Visit jetblue.com/Barbados for special vacation packages.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you on this Saturday morning. Welcome back to hour 2 of the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires right here on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice. Happy to have you along for the ride this morning. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the program, my conversation with Derby-winning owner Ramiro Restrepo, or that Unsung Hero segment with Armando Reyes, all you have to do is head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast at your leisure. As a matter of fact, you can listen to all of our shows at your leisure, horseracingradio.net, or however you are accessing your podcasts. Hour 2 kicks off with Conor Murphy momentarily. Looking forward to that visit, talking about today's United Nations at Monmouth. Maggie Wolfendale, longtime NYRA and Fox Sports analyst, going to be with me at 9:20 to take a look at the big weekend coming up at Saratoga. And then Woodbine announcer Robert Geller at 9:40 to share his thoughts on this weekend's festivities north of the border, and there are plenty of great races there, including the Woodbine Oaks and the Plate Trial coming up tomorrow afternoon. Hour 3, 10 Eastern, kicks off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe Kristufek will be with me to give you 3 races you can keep an eye on this afternoon. Kurt Becker Stroll Through Racing History still ahead at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale and Tim, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, will join me for this week's I Ask, They Answer, that always popular segment to wrap up the show. That is at 10:30 Eastern. Well, Conor Murphy has a fantastic story about getting started with his training career back in 2012. And if it wasn't for that incredible story, he might not be in a position to win the Grade 1 United Nations this afternoon. That is where he finds himself. He's looking for his first Grade 1 win of his training career. He's had several graded wins, just not a Grade 1. Foreign relations could give him that elusive Grade 1 this afternoon, and Conor is with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Conor, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you on this United Nations Day? Ready to roll?
Yeah, it's a beautiful morning here at Monmouth, and horses feeling sharp and good this morning. So yeah, we're ready to go.
It's a good group. You've got a few horses in here trained by Mike Maker. We know how good he is with his turf horses, but foreign relations is certainly no slouch. That win 2 starts back in the Louisville was extremely impressive.
Yeah, it's a fascinating race today. I mean, even from a betting standpoint, it's very there's plenty of interesting horses in there. Like you said, 2 back at Churchill. We said we'd step him into graded stakes company for the first time, and he was impressive on the day. So since that race, this has been the plan. And there was an 8-week gap, which sometimes it can work for you, sometimes it doesn't. So we felt, he was doing so good, and he was feeling very fresh and well in himself. So we decided the race at Ellis Park was a good one to go for in between.
Yeah, that race didn't unfold the way you would have liked. He was the even money favorite. That was the Chorleywood Stakes on June 17th. Ends up finishing 6th that day. He'll get a rematch with the horse that was second in that race, Therapist, in the United Nations this afternoon. What went wrong that day, Conor?
Well, I think, that race was originally scheduled to be 1 3/8 at Churchill. And obviously about 10 days before, they switched the meet to Ellis and back to 1 1/4. So, we stuck to the plan, but I don't think 1 1/4 around Ellis was going to play to his strengths. But like I said, we felt he needed a race in between. And I think he's a horse who likes to be engaged, Mike. He likes to be involved just off the pace, just so he knows he's in a race. I think his only 2 disappointing races have been when he's been mid-pack or out the back, and he got pinched at the start at Ellis, and he just found himself back further than he would have liked, and the race just didn't pan out the way we would have liked. But I've no concern about it. I mean, you just have to put a line through that race and just judge him by his win at Churchill, and I think that's what I'd like to think that's what you'll see today is bringing his best foot forward today.
His jockey, Declan Cannon, knows him very well. He's been aboard several times. They've had a lot of success together. Why does he appear to be such a good fit?
The horse, he's not the most straightforward horse. He takes a bit of knowing, and I think you saw at Keeneland, Flavian Pratt, who's obviously one of the elite riders in the country. He went by the horse and came in, and there was an unfortunate incident where the horse on the inside of him came down. That wasn't anybody's fault, but he's just a horse who takes a bit of knowing, and you need to know what he's going to do before he does it, kind of thing. And Declan, he was riding him a turf where broke his maiden on him, and he knows him well, and I think that's very important to keep the partnership intact.
You've had success throughout your career, Conor. A horse named Dimension comes to mind, who gave you a few Grade 2 victories. north of the border. He was extremely consistent, very, very good. And now you get this horse, Foreign Relations. When you get a horse like this in the barn, it's got to make getting to the barn at 5 a.m. a little bit easier, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I mean, we're obviously a small operation, and we've been lucky to have, a few good horses over the years. Like you said, Dimension, we Great Wide Open and Mace, horses like that who were knocking on the door in Grade 1 company, but just didn't quite get over the line. But it's always, when you've got a horse like this, it's just, we've probably about 15 horses in training, so it definitely helps getting out of bed in the morning when you've horses like that. But we're looking forward to this afternoon, and it's a hot race. We're under no illusion from that point of view, but I think if he runs his race, I think he's got a big chance.
Yeah, Dimension. Going back to him for just a minute, Dimension, a 3-time Grade 2 winner, but as you said, knocking on the door in Grade 1 company, and now you have Foreign Relations, who's a Grade 3 winner, trying to give you that first Grade 1 win of your training career. And Conor, when I explain how these class levels work to people that are just getting into horse racing, and I try to tell them the picture like Major League Baseball, for example, where you have the professional level, the big leagues, and then it comes back to AAA, AA, Single A. So a horse like Dimension, who's knocking on the door, wins 3 Grade 2s. How much of a difference is there between the competition at the Grade 2 level and then the Grade 1 level? How do you put that into perspective?
I mean, Grade 1 is I think with Dimension he was a solid Grade 2 horse, and he was beat 3 lengths in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, finishing 5th behind Misdirection. And there's just, you can have a horse who wins Grade 2s comfortably, but just can't quite get there in Grade 1. It's even though there's not much in it, but it's tough. I mean, I've spoken to bigger trainers than me that have a lot better horses, and they'll tell you you'll go into these Grade 1s thinking you've got a big chance, and you go home with your tail between your legs. So it's it's tough, and like I say, we're under no illusion. We've been there with Dimension at Grade 1 company and didn't quite get there, and like I say, Grade Wide Open, he was second in the Shadwell Turf Mile, and you think you'll go back the next time and win the Grade 1. It doesn't work like that. They're so tough all the time, and these horses that are in the United Nations today, I'm sure there won't be much between them at the end of the day. You could probably run the race 5 or 6 times and you might have different results every time, but it would be huge. It's always been a big ambition of ours to win a Grade 1, obviously, and it would be it'd be massive if we could bring it off. Look, it's not all riding on today. There'll be other days, fingers crossed, but we're looking forward to today, and hopefully we just want him to run his best race and see how we get on.
If Foreign Relations runs the same race he ran in the Grade 3 Louisville 2 starts back, or even the race he ran when he won his allowance race at Keeneland on April 19th, those were both impressive. Are either of those efforts good enough to win the United Nations today, or does he have to take it to another level?
It's a fair question. I mean, I think, he's unbeaten. He's 2 for 2 round 3 turns. That doesn't, I think the race at Keeneland, obviously, we mentioned didn't work out, whatever, but that race and the Churchill race, I think he doesn't do a whole lot when he hits the front, and I think he might have won with a bit up his sleeve both those races. Now, is that going to be good enough to win today? I've no idea. But that's what we're hoping he can reproduce those runs. And if he does, I'd like to think we'd be right there. But there's seriously good horses in there. I mean, Red Knight, he's been there, done that. He's the one to beat. There's no question about that. But then you've got the likes of Planetario and Catnip, and they're on the up. They're unexposed. limited liability ran a big race behind us at Churchill, and now we have to give him £4 today. So, it's a tall order. There's no doubt about it. But if he can reproduce those two races at Keeneland and Churchill, I do believe he has a big chance.
Talking with trainer Conor Murphy here on the Horse Racing Radio Network in search of the first Grade 1 victory of his career. It would also be the first Grade 1 win for his horse, Foreign Relations, who goes in today's Grade 1 United Nations at Monmouth. Conor, no stranger to the winner's circle. He's saddled 76 winners since going out on his own back in 2012. And speaking of 2012, if Riverside Theater doesn't get to the wire first at the Cheltenham Festival, you're not sitting here today probably in this position, Conor. You have to tell the story. I teased it earlier before I introduced you. This is a fantastic story as to how you were able to eventually pursue a career in training.
Yeah, so I was in a lucky position to be working for Nicky Henderson, who's obviously one of the top jumps national hunt trainers in England. And at the time we had a lot of top horses, and made an anti-post bet at the Cheltenham Festival with 5 horses, and I suppose luckily all 5 showed up on their intended race days, and they all won. So it was incredible. It definitely gave me, the plan had been to go out on my own anyway that year, but it definitely, for example, it gave me the opportunity to buy Dimension, who was our flag bearer for many years. So there's no question we wouldn't be where we are without that good kickstart,
If I recall correctly, and I remember you telling me the story when you joined me on the Trainer Talk program back in 2020, and we talked about it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the story goes that you had invested, £50, which is about $75 in that 5-horse parlay, and when they all won, it was a collection of about $1.5 million, about 64,000 to 1. But it would have been more if the bookmakers hadn't capped it. Is that right?
That's right. Or it would have been more if my brain was working better and I divided the bet rather than doing it all as one. But yeah, I think £3.2 million was what it would have paid out if there wasn't a cap at $1 million. So
wow.
Yeah. If there was any chance of getting that other 2.2 now, Mike, I'd take it, I can tell you. But no, it was. Listen, it was great. I mean, it's anyone will tell you who has a big win. It's indescribable, really. It's just life changing, and luckily we it put us in a good position, and it's. When it happens, sure, it's a blur, really. It kind of takes a while to sink in, but like I said, I was in a very privileged position working for that man, and we had some serious ammunition at the time, so it was it all worked out that week anyway, which it's not too often you can say that in this game.
No, well, let's hope it works out this afternoon and you get a great trip in the United Nations, and we'll see if Foreign Relations can find his way to the winner's circle. I know it would be special for you, but special for the connections too. So, Conor, really do appreciate it. All the best this afternoon, my friend, and keep it rolling.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
All right, Conor Murphy here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. That is a fantastic story. Think about it. A 5-horse parlay. They all have to win. Here were the 5 horses, by the way. I went back and looked it up. His bet was placed in December of 2011 for the Cheltenham Festival. Bob's Worth, 10 to 1. Finian's Rainbow was the second horse at 8 to 1. Riverside Theater, who I mentioned, 9 to 1. Simon Sig, 14 to 1. And Sprinter Sacre, may not be pronouncing that exactly correctly, but 10 to 1 on the final. How about that? 10 to 1, 8 to 1, 9 to 1, 14 to 1, 10 to 1. How's that for a 5-horse parlay? That should pay more than $1.5 million for a $75 bet. What a great story. As a matter of fact, you can go back to our website, search Conor Murphy. He tells it during that trainer talk conversation, but he also talks about his entire career. It's a wonderful, wonderful story. You can go back and Google Conor Murphy at horseраcingradio.net. Just hit it in the search tab, and you'll get a chance to listen to that trainer talk show from 2020. All right, when I come back, Maggie Wolfendale joins me live from Saratoga. We're going to talk about the big races today and the huge showdown between Nest and Clairiere coming up tomorrow. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey everyone, it's the Baron with this week's North of the Border report presented by Woodbine Entertainment. Hazelbrook, Canada's 2022 champion female sprinter, will defend her crown in today's $150,000 Grade 3 Henry Stakes at Woodbine. Owned by True North Stable and trained by Lauren Richards, the multiple graded stakes winning daughter of Bayern posted a 4-2-0 mark from 6 starts last season en route to her sovereign recognition. Bred in Kentucky by Mike Bilbray, Hazelbrook will be making her first start since a second to our flash drive in the Grade 2 Bessarabian in November. Other starters include graded stakes place runners Loyalty, Sweet Enough, Miss Speedy, and Baby No Worries. Today's card also showcases 9 3-year-old fillies going 1 mile on the E.P. Taylor Turf Course in the $150,000 Grade 3 Ontario Colleen Stakes. Mark Cassie trainee, Rider, a Bay daughter of Quality Road, has 2 wins and a second from 4 career starts for owner Live Oak Plantation. The 3-year-old Dark Bay, bred in Kentucky by Summer Wind Equine, arrives at the Ontario Colleen off a 4th place finish, 1 length behind Mohawk Trail in the Alleywow Stakes on June 25th. The race also features stakes winners Blind Spot, Grade 3 winner Queen Picasso, and last year's Grade 1 Natama Stakes winner Last Call. The Henry is race 8 on Saturday's 10-race card. The Ontario Colleen is slated for race 7. First post, 1:05 p.m. And that's your North of the Border report for this Saturday morning. For more updates and racing information, visit woodbine.com. Or follow along on both Twitter and Instagram at WoodbineTB.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Clairiere, a bit tough to handle there, looking to come through down at the rail. Here comes Clairiere up the inside. Here's Malathot on the outside as they move down for the 8th pole. It is Clairiere, Malathot, Crazy Beautiful in between those two. It is Clairiere and Malathot on the outside. It's a showdown in the Chauvet that's going to go to Clairiere, who comes through on the inside to win it under Joel Rosario. Malathot was second, and Crazy Beautiful finished third. The time for the mile and a furlong, 1 minute, 51 and 4/5 seconds.
John Embryo with the call of last year's Chauvet and Clairiere getting the victory at the Spa. She is back to defend that title tomorrow in what promises to be another great showdown with Nest, who makes her 4-year-old debut, and that is the debut that we have been anxiously awaiting. And I told you earlier, I think it sets up what could be a tremendous run over the next few months in this distaff division. I think this could, just like last year, I thought the distaff division was the most entertaining, the most compelling of any of the divisions. And I know you had Flightline in the Classic, but Flightline was so dominant that, to me, it didn't leave a lot of drama. Just every time he went to the post, you kind of felt like Flightline was going to win. With Nest and with Clairiere and with all the top 3-year-old fillies, a couple we're going to see today in the Coaching Club American Oaks at Saratoga, if they continue to develop, Pretty Mischievous, throw her into the mix, I think that this has the makings of a really fun summer and early fall in this distaff division. And I welcome now the leading distaffer, if you will, at least on Fox Sports and on NYRA. She's been doing it for a long time. She is Maggie Wolfendale, and she is with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Maggie, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How are you?
Good. Everything is wonderful, and excited to talk some Saratoga with you. Do you agree with me that the distaff division this year could turn out to be, again, maybe the most compelling that we have in the sport?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been pretty spoiled the last few years with Clairiere and thankful to her connections of Stone Street and Steve Asmussen for keeping her around for another year, because I think finally she could dominate. So she doesn't have to deal with none of that anymore. But Todd Pletcher has another one waiting for her and Ness. I think, this Sunday Chuvie is her race to lose. Obviously, she is one that I don't want to say she's ultimately pace dependent, but she does her running from behind. She seems to be able to close into any sort of pace there is. I think she is absolutely best at Belmont Park. For some reason, she loves that one-turn mile, because a lot of times those front runners, they go faster down that backside because it's like that elongated sprint. So she benefits from that, but obviously she's run well enough here at the Spa around the 2 turns and elsewhere to suggest that she probably is the leader of the division. But exciting to see what Ness is going to do. It's been a long time between races for her. And, a couple setbacks getting back to the races, but it'll be a good place and a fun way to start her season.
Yeah, and even if she doesn't win tomorrow, and again, like you pointed out, Clairiere has the advantage. There is no layoff question for her. She's been running. She's been in great form. She's winning all these big races. She has the advantage tomorrow. But if Ness just shows with a strong effort, maybe the two of them put on a show through the lane, or Ness comes flying late and proves that she's back, or whatever. Maybe she even wins. But whatever the case is, she just has to show that she is back to being the same old Ness, or maybe even a little better than last year, and it sets up what could be one hell of a run in this division.
And that's what we want to see, right? I mean, Ness, we got used to her with blowout wins when dominating her 3-year-old division. And then you have Clairiere, who always shows up but never wins by that much, So, it'll be really fun to watch them both tomorrow. Looking forward to it. And then we get treated today to the 3-year-old, who will likely, the leader of that crop, come fall time in the Breeders' Cup, they're going to have to step up against those two.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And by the way, the Grade 2 Chuvie tomorrow is race number 4. It's a small field, so it's race 4 at Saratoga tomorrow. 3 o'clock Eastern is the post. It's 1 1/8 on the main track. But let's segue over to the 3-year-olds that we're going to see this afternoon in the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks. The leader in the division, Pretty Mischievous, is not in this race, but you do have a wonderful race with Wet Paint and South Lawn and Gambling Girl. Talk to me about that field later today.
Okay, so I am incredibly good friends. My husband considers Brendan Walsh one of his best friends. It's a very curious decision to run in the test, because that 3-year-old filly sprinting division is one of the deepest we've had in years. Now, maybe they think that she's better with some pace to run at with a closing kick. I don't know if that's true. I mean, she was up on a pace that was pretty quick, going 1 1/8 in the Kentucky Oaks, and she was able to get the job done. Whatever. She's not playing today. It's a great matchup. I feel like there's going to be some horses that might fall through the cracks a bit, if you will. Strangely, even though she's New York bred and mad love to all New York bred to, participate in these open graded stakes, I've just never been Gambling Girl's biggest fan, as Todd will look for his 9th CCA Oaks, which is incredible. I'm really curious, Mike, to see what South Lawn does. Because when I was down there watching these horses prepare for the Kentucky Oaks, I thought her and Pretty Mischievous were training the best by a mile. And when she broke that day, and you watch her coming out of the gate, she had her head caught. She broke well. She never, ever seemed comfortable. Now, Norm Cassidy said he wasn't thrilled with the trip. I don't really know what her rider could have done differently. It's a big field, and a lot of chaos happens in those races. But I want to give her another chance, because she did beat the leader of the division, Pretty Mischievous, and I think she is a nice filly. And I don't think you ever can necessarily put lines through performances and ignore them, but I do want to give her the benefit of the doubt in a smaller field, maybe a more comfortable trip, though she's going to have to do it from the inside post.
Yeah, is the question mark in here who's your filly? Would you say that she's a big question mark?
Yeah, I think she was, track bias dated last time out at Ellis, where Wet Paint was against it. I'm excited to see what Wet Paint does coming back. on a bit more of a fairer racetrack that we have here at Saratoga. And is Hoosier Filly as good as she was billed to be as a 2-year-old? Is she getting back to that, or was that last race just because she was with the flow of the track?
That's a great point. She took the field wire to wire that day in the Monomoy Girl at Ellis. That was back on June 17th. She defeated Wet Paint, so they'll get a rematch. But we'll see if she is indeed back to that form that she displayed as a 2-year-old filly when she was so good. There was talk that she was going to take on the boys at some point and maybe point for the Kentucky Derby. And that wasn't just rhetoric that they were throwing out there. They really believed she was that good, and on paper it looked like she was. She just hasn't quite been the same at 3. Maybe she gets back to that form this afternoon.
Maybe she does. I mean, maybe she does. But so often, to play devil's advocate, so often we see horses really good as 2-year-olds, and then they just never go on. Now, I don't think that's necessarily happened, but has she gone on enough? I think it's a really good race today. I'm so looking forward to the CCA Oaks. Last year it was all about Nest, right? And she just destroyed and dominated the fields in the CCA Oaks and the Alabama. But this year, without Pretty Mischievous in this race, this is wide open.
Yeah, it certainly is. Maggie Wolfendale here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. You'll be sure to tune in to her this afternoon with the coverage of Saratoga Live and all the Fox Sports shows. They do a fantastic job, and Maggie, an integral part of that success, no doubt about it. Maggie, the Grade 3 Caress is the other greatest stakes on the program today. It's race number 6, completely different scenario than what we're going to see in the Coaching Club American Oaks. This is 5.5 furlongs on the grass. I always find these races to be so interesting from a handicapping perspective because once those gates open, all hell breaks loose, and you just don't know what's going to go on in these 5.5 furlong turf sprints.
As I've always said, they all take turns beating each other, right?
Yeah.
Because they can be so chaotic, there's never an opportunity for a horse to dominate the division more often than not. So it's a short field, but it's intriguing. Look, you have the kind of confirmed horses in here, the two that come out of the Intercontinental in Bubble Rock and Poppy Flower. The argument could be made that Bubble Rock was maybe a little overconfidently ridden last time out, in which she wanted to go forward, right? And I think, and Joelle's great at trying to get a horse to kind of come back to him a little bit. But with those types of sprinters, and I get his thought process and what he was doing, but in hindsight, I'm wondering if would she have won if he had actually just put his hands out and let her go on and get away from that field. He kind of allowed the rest of the field to get into it, in which Poppy Flower pulled just an epic trip with Jose Ortiz, saving ground, tipped out, and was able to make the last run. And then you have this newcomer for Christophe Clement I always just call her Debbie Darling for some reason. So it's just Deborah, who is just, her races are dominating. Her 2 races for Christophe on the turf, she just runs like that true out-and-out turf sprinter, just kind of lowers herself into stride and attacks the ground. And it feels like where some of these horses in here might benefit from more ground, she might be the one that loves the 5.5.
Maggie, I'm going to put you on the spot with these next 2 questions because you're a consummate pro, and I know that you can handle it. Is there any other horse racing today at Saratoga and any other race that you're really excited to watch, maybe from a betting standpoint or just as a fan standpoint?
Now you are putting me on the spot. But I'm such a visual person, like I have to look at my PPs to answer that. There's so the first time starter in the first race that I'm intrigued to see because I liked his turf workout, and that's Ask Isaac.
Oh yeah,
Bill Mott.
Okay, I got you. I'm on the PPs right now. I'm looking at it right now. I got you.
So don't get me wrong, like the ones who have run, Todd's horse is really interesting. Noted he'll likely be a heavy favorite because you watch the way he was ridden, and he was ridden like this was virtually a prep to go 1 mile and a 16th up at Saratoga in his Belmont effort, because I read, kicks him out, lets him run down the lane, and then galloping out, he's going, come on, come on, let's go. Like, just keep galloping out. So he really got that foundation into him, and that goes a long way. But I'm really excited to see what this horse, Ask Isaac, does in that first race. Now I'm going to go through and look at, I think Linda Rice has been dominating, right? But it's like, is it going to end? Because for a year, she has been dominating the NYRA circuit, and she's doing the same up here in Saratoga under the big lights. Paddington, she wins a shake on him for $50,000. He blows out a field in his second start at Ellis Park, and now he's starter eligible. What is he going to do today? I mean, not that I'm interested in him as a betting perspective, but these Linda Rice horses that she's picked up from Kentucky are just, they're running lights out. So,
all right, I knew you would handle that question. I knew you had to think about it for a second, but I knew you had other horses in your head that you're looking forward to seeing today. How about looking back on the first several days of the meet? Which horse has really jumped off the page to you with that performance that you said you're very visual? As you were watching it, you said, wow, that was a really good effort.
Trying to think back. The 2-year-old races have been such an anomaly. You know what I mean? Like, they came up slow. Pirate, who came back as a slow figure, the first time starter for Todd.
Yep.
It came the brother to National Treasure came back a slow figure, but that was visually a pretty good performance, to be fair. And then it was kind of fun, not fun, but it was interesting to see White Beam, turn the tables on an Italian in the Grade 1 Diana, and maybe not the horse that's been, blowing us away, but Flavien Prat. I know the Ortiz brothers are dominating, but Prat is not making one mistake at all. And I think he is the human that I've been watching that sometimes I'm just like, wow, how did he just do that? In any race, doesn't matter turf or dirt.
Maggie, you have my permission next time you see me to punch me in the face for asking you those questions and putting you on the spot, but you handled them beautifully. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to talk racing with you. Before I let you go, this afternoon, all the coverage coming up on Saratoga Live, Fox. Tell me what's coming up this afternoon.
So today kicks off our first Saratoga Saturday on Fox. So we will be on Big Fox from 3 to 6. So you'll get the Caress and the CCA Oaks. And that'll be every Saturday throughout the meet and a little longer coverage on Travers Day. And then, as we usually do, we're flip-flopping between FS1 and FS2 throughout the meet.
Wonderful stuff. Maggie, appreciate it. I know it's a busy morning for you. I appreciate you taking a few minutes. All the best. Good luck at the windows and great luck on the coverage as well. We'll be watching.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks for having me on. Love being on HRRN.
All right, Maggie Wolfendale here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. When I come back, turn our attention north of the border. Big weekend there at Woodbine. The voice of Woodbine, Robert Geller, will be with me. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all #1 in their category. Point of entry, the #1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the #1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile.
Signature Red, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red win his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front. Admiralty Pier out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
And don't forget Adina's new sire, American Guru. His first crop are now yearlings of 2023. American Guru, the son of Unbridled Song, whose family have already set their gold standards around the world.
Achieve Equine, makers of Flair Equine nasal strips, brings you innovative, evidence-based products for the health and well-being of your equine athletes, like the new Impact Protection Half Pad from Europe, VIP Equestrian, that provides a superior layer of cushioning for the horse's back. Visit achieveequine.com for more information on the innovative products we offer. That's achieveequine.com. Breathe easy, we've got your back.
Eclipse Champion Blade, a proven sire with over 15% lifetime stakes horses. His recent top runners include graded stakes winner Litigate, as well as Wet Paint. And in the sales ring, Blaine continues to prove his value. Also an emerging broodmare sire. His stakes-producing daughters include the dam of Eclipse Champion Forte.
Forte to win the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
Blade, standing at Claiborne Farm.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And Moira's run past McCool's Girl as Salabia takes the lead. And in turn, Moira pouncing for the lead and trying to run home on the outside. Swoop to finish. In the center, Curling Candy's finishing on, but Moira's burst away as they turn in the Woodbine Oaks from Salabia. And they've raced 4 in front, and Moira has dashed out by 4 lengths. Salabia in second, and the rest are forlorn. They're so far back, and this is a procession in no uncertain terms. Moira has completely turned this into a one-act affair, and this year's Woodbine Oaks is absolutely at the mercy of only one horse, a fantastic winner. Moira, does she put her name into the Queen's Plate bid by that win? She won by 12 lengths. Sister Seagull second, Super Flashy third.
That is the voice of Robert Geller with the call of last year's Woodbine Oaks, won by champion Moira. So brilliant in victory that day. She would go on and take the Queen's Plate and be named the Canadian Horse of the Year. She was brilliant last year, and she has been pretty good this year. Not quite the same as what we saw a year ago, but no doubt there have been some incredible fillies to come through that Woodbine Oaks, and that takes place tomorrow. Big day at Woodbine today, and Robert is with me now here on HRRN. Robert, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I love that call, and I loved your call in the Queen's Plate too. You think back on some of these fillies that you've had the privilege to see in the Woodbine Oaks over the past several years, and there have been some good ones, haven't there?
They really have. I mean, horses like Wonder Godot and Holy Helena, who were using that as a springboard to the Queen's Plate and went on to win it, they really have been impressive. The Woodbine Oaks has been a tremendous springboard to the Queen's Plate, now the King's Plate. And, it's certainly lovely when these really well-bred and certainly high-purchased horses really live up to expectations. And we've had some really nice ones, and we'll see some really nice ones on the weekend.
In stark contrast to what we've seen here in the Triple Crown and in the Kentucky Derby in the United States, in the Queen's Plate, fillies have done pretty well over the years. How come?
I think it's been a more recent trend. I think there was a period when they didn't. I feel I don't have a particular reason, but I guess it depends just on maturity.
Yeah.
And perhaps some of those fillies were a little bit more forward in their preparation. And we did run the Queen's Plate at an earlier time. It's changed since during COVID, and since then we've stuck to it, which probably is better for everyone as far as 3-year-olds are concerned. But I'm not sure if there's a rhyme or reason, but I feel like sometimes, just even when I was growing up in Australia and I used to watch some of the fillies when they were in their zone, I used to always say to myself, if a filly's in the zone, they have a season that could just be like unstoppable. And I often feel that's the case with some of these fillies. And they might not never repeat that again. Moira, as you mentioned, might be just a little, maybe just a little more momentum's needed in her finish these days than just a lightning fast acceleration. But she's still great. But I do think that there's definitely been a push by a lot of owners to get some really nice bred horses into Woodbine.
14 3-year-old fillies will line up tomorrow in the Woodbine Oaks. Is there a Moira among this group tomorrow?
No, I don't think so. I mean, it's interesting because Moira came into the race with very little racing foundation, and she had really never run a bad race. And there are horses who are very lightly raced. I know Kevin Attard's got a horse who's a second lifetime starter in Delphia. Ticker Tape Home certainly is the horse that was very, very eye-catching. I do believe that Ticker Tape Home is very dangerous horse if able to stretch to this distance, which is the 1 1/8, because Ticker Tape Home just played with rivals last start, but it was a shorter trip, and I do think that has a touch of class about her because she's beautifully bred. She's by Medaglia d'Oro. You look at the bloodline on the dam side, Warfront, she's got a lot going for her, and Mark Casse has her in great shape, but I don't think she's the same style of horse as Moira. As far as others, I mean, there's always a chance that something will step up and surprise us, but a lot of them have been around the block, and there are a few fresh names in the race, and I don't know enough about Big Brass Bed, but Chad Brown certainly, it's great to see bringing in a horse to run against the locals.
Yeah, in recent years, the past couple of seasons anyway, the race has gone through Kevin Attard, of course, the trainer of Moira, and he won it the year before with Money for Roe. He's back in this year's Woodbine Oaks as well. He's fresh off of his milestone win, number 700, so he's riding high too. Maybe Kevin Attard pulls off the hat trick and makes it 3 in a row.
I think Kevin's got a tremendous stable this year. He's really had support from X-Men Racing, SF Racing, Madaket Stables, Alan Bell Welling. He's got owners that are really willing to buy some really quality horses. Now, he's got a ton of different angles with these runners, and I think Wickenheiser appeals to me quite a lot, because there's a horse that was against older. The filly ran against the older division last start and the boys, and I thought ran a really good race. My impression is that Wickenheiser has actually beaten Ticker Tape Home on the very first lifetime start on turf and may well be better on turf, at the same time handles both. And I do think that was a mighty good run. And I really like the fact that Kevin's just given this horse the one run, because it seems to me that they're targeting the King's Plate and they're hoping that this horse does a really big showing on that Sunday to go forward and be threatening for that race. But Wickenheiser's run was eye-catching. I suppose that Delphia is very intriguing, but this is a big step up in class. And as far as the Mark Casse-trained Elysian Field, I know that they're very confident that this horse is training extremely well. I thought was in a difficult situation last start, chasing Ticker Tape Home, who was just cruising on the lead. And it's always hard to bring the field up, and tried to do that and stuck on. So I think we'll actually be able to stay the distance and may be interesting in this race. But I do feel that, to me, the horse that caught my eye calling the race, I was really impressed with Wickenheiser's most recent run.
Post time for the Woodbine Oaks tomorrow at Woodbine is 6 o'clock Eastern. It will go as race number 10 on that Sunday program. The race preceding it, Robert, by the way, visiting with Robert Geller, the voice of Woodbine. Looking forward to hearing his calls this weekend and every day throughout the meet. But the race preceding it tomorrow is the Plate Trial Stakes. These are the 3-year-old boys and the primary local prep for the Queen's Plate. A field of 12 lining up in here. What are some of the main storylines?
Stanley House is certainly one of the main storylines, because Stanley House was very impressive in the most recent victory, which was a much more forward-placed horse than we've seen with Stanley House before. Had run against Tyson, and Tyson came back to win a stakes race recently. So that form has been probably franked by the fact that Tyson beat a very impressive horse in Treason. And so they are horses that make the form line strong. Finished behind Turf King, who came out and beat some of these as the Chad Brown shipper recently. I thought that, interestingly, though, I think, well, before I mention the stablemate, I want to mention another headline horse will be Philip My Dear. Again, we're talking about a horse who may well prefer turf, but has run extremely well on all surfaces and was really compromised in the last trip. First up, had a very difficult start in a wide trip, and the winner of the race, Kalko Kaipuz, going to not go for the plate trial. Philip My Dear will get the distance. Kazushi Kimura is back riding, and I did think this horse would really be amongst the chances. But the horse I'm going to suggest is a very big price is the stablemate to Stanley House, Cool Kiss, who's been a very interesting horse in terms of trips. Did win 2 starts ago with what looked to be a real rally when they started to wind up. Horses were really closing from the back, and Cool Kiss in a blanket finish really dug in. And then last start was extremely wide, so wide that it was impossible to score, but made up a ton of ground. And I think there's a value play with a rider that's as hot as ever in Sahin Savachi. He's really winning a lot of races. And I wouldn't put it past Cool Kiss to be a surprise packet. And just a note on Twins.
Well, it sounds like we might have lost Robert there. We'll try to reconnect with him here momentarily, talking about the races coming up at Woodbine tomorrow. And, of course, the Queen's Plate, or now the King's Plate. I keep saying the Queen's Plate, but it is the King's Plate. And I'll have to ask Robert about that, too, with the change back to the King's Plate after the passing of the Queen this year. And it's hard to get out of the habit of saying Queen's Plate, but it is not. It is the King's Plate now. The plate trial tomorrow, race number 9. 5:23 Eastern is the post. Again, it's followed by the Woodbine Oaks that we had spoken about just a few minutes ago as race number 10 at 6 o'clock Eastern. There are other graded stakes races on the program tomorrow, too. You have the Grade 2 Connaught Cup and the Grade 3 Trillium as part of that Sunday card. And then today, the Grade 3 Hendry Stakes and the Grade 3 Ontario Colleen. And hopefully when we get Robert back, I'll get a chance to ask him for a quick thought on one of those races as well. But, again, trying to reconnect with Robert here. I think we lost him. Lee, he is actually calling me right now. So if you want to try him back, we'll see if we can get him back here for a couple of minutes. But it should be a tremendous afternoon of racing today and tomorrow. And if we don't connect with Robert, we really appreciate his time here this morning. But we will keep trying him to see if we can get him back on the line. Poll question today. I'm going to update you on the poll question while I have a minute here. This is not related to Woodbine. It is related to the Haskell or to the Chuvie at Saratoga tomorrow. Which return are you most looking forward to this weekend? Is it Arabian Night in the Haskell or Nest in the Chuvie? So far, 64% of you saying it is Nest in the Chuvie that you're looking forward to seeing, but so many of you also looking forward to watching the races at Woodbine this weekend. And Robert is indeed back with us now. Robert, apologies for the drop call, but we were talking about the plate trial, and I have to apologize. I still keep calling it the Queen's Plate, and I need to correct myself. It is now the King's Plate here in 2023.
Yeah, it is the King's Plate, and it is hard to really change the name in our minds because I'm so used to saying it too. And I apologize with that dropped call. It happens across borders, I suppose. But I was just saying there was an excuse for Twin City last start after that win in the King Quarry in the Marine had a trapped Epiglottis, so it just couldn't get breathing going. So I think they're expecting a lot more. And I think Paramount Prince is another horse that will take action in terms of the betting, who's the Mark Cassidy trained runner that ran a mighty good race in what was the Queenstone. But the question mark for Paramount Prince is the distance going from what is just 7 furlongs to 1 mile and an eighth. So Stanley House will take a lot of interest, and so will Philip Maidea. But I'm going to take a shot on a horse called Cool Kiss to run a mighty big race at 15-1 morning line.
Robert is somebody who grew up wanting to be a track announcer. I never had the skill to memorize the horses, and that's a big part of being a track announcer. I practiced, I tried, it just never came to me. And when I watched different announcers, I remember the late Luke Kreitbosch used to have crayons, and he would color in his program, each and every horse, with the silks that the jockey was going to be wearing. My good friend Kurt Becker at Keeneland will simply take a yellow notepad and write down different elements about the horse, whether it's blinkers or shadow roll, whatever it might be, and that helps it stick for him. When you're calling these races, especially a big field like 12 in the plate trial, what's the key for you? How do you go about getting ready?
So I will have already studied the past performances, so I know those horses in my mind. I look at the list and I go, which ones can I visualize the silks of straight away? And really it comes to the time of the actual race from the moment they leave the paddock and come out on the post parade. That's really when it all happens. And I put as little as I can on the program because to me, I've already got enough to look at out there. But I do, a bit like you mentioned with Kurt, I notice especially we have a lot of horses with similar silks and definitely with stables that run 2 or 3 in the same colors or same race. Well, I will put a note on the cap color, a shadow roll, or any gear changes that will help distinguish that horse. But that's it. And then I really just run through them in my mind. And it's really a matter of just being present in that moment and concentration. And from that point on, you sort of just have to trust. But I do like to just hold my program there, but I don't usually look at it, and I don't look at the TV. So it's really a matter of really getting into the feel of the race and allowing the race to take you where it is, and then sort of reading the race as well as just calling it. There's a sense of, you know, in a way, as an announcer, you want to be a little bit ahead of what the public's seeing by feeling how the jockeys are situated in the way their positioning is in the saddle, because it gives you an idea of how well the horse is traveling. And you certainly, everyone's got different processes, but it's really about the colors, as you say. You have to have those colors in your head, and it's better to be a little underdone than overdone. It's better to almost be a little raw than too over-rehearsed on the colors. It's odd in that way.
Well, Robert, we really enjoy watching and listening. You do a fantastic job, and I really appreciate the visit here this morning. We didn't even get to talk about the big races coming up today, the Grade 3 Hendry, the Grade 3 Ontario Colleen, a couple more graded stakes on the program tomorrow to go along with the plate trial and the Woodbine Oaks. It's a tremendous weekend. First post, 1:05 Eastern. Make sure you're enjoying those races, and make sure you're tuned in to Robert Geller. Robert, appreciate it, my friend. Enjoy the weekend, and we will catch up again soon.
Thank you so much, and thank you for those very kind words. I appreciate it, too.
Yep, I mean every word. Robert Geller, fantastic, and one of the good guys in the sport of thoroughbred racing. Coming up next, I'll take a look at a couple historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend, and get you ready for hour number 3. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed, Versailles, Kentucky.
I'm 54, so basically, it's too late to start saving for retirement, right?
Not right. Starting to save, even in your 50s, can really make a difference.
Well, right now, saving seems hard to wrap my head around. Plus, with the way this year's been going...
Hey, listen, it's okay. You still got this. Just go to aceyourretirement.org. It's an online tool from AARP that can help you get your retirement savings on track no matter your age. It's free and only takes about 3 minutes.
I like 3 minutes.
Yeah, at aceyourretirement.org, you'll chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach. Just answer a few questions and you'll get a personalized plan and tips to help boost your retirement savings. Tips that are easy to understand and tailored to your lifestyle.
I like that too.
Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back. Just head to aceyourretirement.org and make your plan to start saving for retirement.
Thanks.
That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Did you receive a call or message that mentioned Social Security and demanded immediate action? Did the caller know your Social Security number or other personal information and tell you that your Social Security number had been used in connection with the crime? Did you feel worried that your Social Security number might be suspended, your bank account might be frozen or seized, or you could be arrested? That is not the Social Security Administration. Social Security will not threaten you, demand your personal information, or instant payment. Email or text you pictures or documents, or use a real government official's name to gain your trust. Social Security does not accept payments by gift card, prepaid debit card, internet currency, or by mailing cash. Criminals use these forms of payment because they are hard to trace. Do not be fooled. Hang up. Ignore them. Report this criminal activity to the Social Security Administration Office of the Inspector General at oig.ssa.gov.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Stumbling around. Oh, 2 hours in the books, one more to come. I'll tell you about that momentarily. But it is the time in the show where I tell you about a couple historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend, July 22nd. Yesterday, July 21st, 1989 was the year that and the day that jockey Chris McCarron notched his 5,000th career victory. He did it by riding I Sure Hope So to victory in the 5th race at Hollywood Park. And today, July 22nd, 1999, the day that Dale Baird, formerly the winningest trainer in history, recorded his 8,000th victory at Mountaineer Park in Chester, West Virginia. He sent out Midsummer Scene to take the 6th race that afternoon. So happy anniversary to the late Dale Baird. 2 hours down, 1 to go. If you missed any portion of the show, head over to our website, horseracingradio.net, to check out the podcast. Hour 3 begins with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Joe Kristufek going to join me momentarily for that segment. 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly stroll through racing history. And at 10:30, Dale, Tim, I ask, they answer. Don't miss that. If your local station is leaving us at this time, you can continue listening to the third hour of the show on SiriusXM and horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 is next, right after this pause for station identification on HRRN.
From the rail to your radio, this is the Horse Racing Radio Network.
And America's horse has opened up. It's American Pharoah with that majestic stride, pouring it on through the stretch. Keen Ice runs into second. American Pharoah, the party continues as he rolls home in the Haskell.
It is Nest who is opening up on the field. Nest putting in a grade 1 performance today. Nest, much the best in this coaching club. American Oaks, she won by better than 10 lengths.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
And here comes Bigger Picture, storming through along the inside. What a trip for Bigger Picture. He and Can't Help Believing square off. Can't Help Believing takes the lead. Bigger Picture, they're nose and nose. Bigger Picture got up to win the United Nations.
They come for home, and Lucky Girl Bella Bell now coming flying 16 archers out of nowhere. Bella Bell, Lady T late on the outside, 16 archers, but Bella Bell's too good. And Bella Bell has won the San Clemente.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back. Hour number 3 of the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Mike Penna with you on this Saturday morning as we continue on racing toward the finish line, but one more jam-packed hour still ahead. And if you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the program, taking a look at the big weekend at Saratoga, and of course the huge day at Monmouth later today, and even a look at what's happening at Woodbine this weekend with the Woodbine Oaks coming up tomorrow, all you have to do is go back to our website, horseracingradio.net, to check out the podcast. You can listen at your leisure, and you can do that on every major podcast platform as well. Hour 3 kicks off momentarily with the TwinSpires Triple Play. I'll be joined by Joe Kristufek to give you 3 races you'll want to keep an eye on later today. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History comes up at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale and Tim are going to be with me for this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer, as I put them on the hot seat with a few of the hot topics in the sport as it is this week here in thoroughbred racing. But without further ado, my friend Joe Kristufek with the TwinSpires Triple Play. All right, Joe K. 3 races, all at TwinSpires.com. That's where people want to bet them. And good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Yeah, big weekend. I mean, Haskell came up great. Ellis, on the local scene here for me in Kentucky. Another solid card, and looking forward to making some money this weekend. I think there's several opportunities to do so.
Yeah, several opportunities and a great, great weekend of racing, not just at Monmouth Park and Saratoga, but all over the country. And you have actually selected a race at Ellis Park to help us kick things off, and that is race number, 8. It is the Jeff Hall Memorial Stakes, which carries a purse of $125,000, 6.5 furlongs on the main track. How'd you see this one, my friend?
Yeah, I like the one chasing time here. He's 8-1 on the morning line for Steve Asmussen and Christian Torres, who is going to make a major impact this summer in Henderson, Kentucky. He's been riding some for Steve, and this is a horse that's just been a model of consistency. He's won 2 of his last 5. He's at the board in the other 3. He's been facing good competition. Never been better maybe than he was last out at Ellis, going 7 furlongs on June 30th. Got a good trip after breaking a little bit slowly. Was in the pocket. Drew off to win by 3 lengths. The favorite that day wasn't all that great, and he was 5-1. So, the price was square and fair that day, and I expect much of the same in this one. With Obeso's coming off the bench, he's going to take quite a bit of money. Necker Island, who beat just 2 horses in an off-the-turf race last out, I think he's a little bit dressed up, and he's going to take some money as well. There are a couple of others. Hear Me Song, who I think, has been rock solid throughout his career coming off the bench, who's going to be tough. And then the speedy Classier coming in from Charlestown, Delaware, and Laurel. Those kinds of horses have been doing well at Ellis Park since we shifted over from Churchill Downs, the better part of 6 weeks ago. So I think those are the 2 horses I'd like to play with my top pick, but at 8-1 from the rail with tactical speed, chasing time for me.
Yeah, no concerns with that inside post going 6.5 furlongs at Ellis Park.
No, I think it's a benefit. I mean, we've seen speed hold well. The inside part of the track has been a huge part of that. This horse, last out, the fractions were 21-3, 43-4. They can't go much faster than that. Although he was 5th early, he was only 3 lengths off the pace. So I expect him to get a very similar pocket trip here. I don't know if we're going to get 8-1. I think 9-2, with no scratches would be more than fair. But, I think the rail post actually works in his favor.
For people that are listening that might not be familiar with Christian Torres, you said he's going to have an impact this meet. He certainly is. He's very talented. Tell me more about him.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when the Churchill meet was shifted over to Ellis, you still had Luis Saez and Tyler Gaffalione riding, and they were dominant, and there was no surprise there. Now it's really wide open. You're going to see, Francisco Arrieta, Brian Hernandez, Corey Landry had a riding triple. He's only 8 wins away going into this riding week from 5,000 in his career. So it really opens things up on the jockey side. And, Christian's made just a solid impact in Kentucky here recently at Oaklawn Park before that. Good, solid, all-around rider. And, when you get into that Steve Asmussen barn, particularly with the way he's been going in Kentucky here in recent weeks, certainly works to your advantage.
All right, so number 1, chasing time in the Jeff Hall Memorial Stakes for Joe Kristufek. That is race 8 at Ellis Park. That begins his TwinSpires triple play for this Saturday morning. We now go to Monmouth, where he has selected the Grade 3 Molly Pitcher, which is race number 10, and then that Grade 1 Haskell, which is race number 12. So let's start with the Molly Pitcher, 1 1/16th, and older fillies and mares. This figures to be a pretty good one. How'd you see this one?
Yeah, there's no question that search results is the horse to beat. 8-5 morning line favorite, likely to be less than that. A heartbreaking loss to Clairiere last time when it looked like she was long gone in the stretch in the Grade 1 Ogden Phipps at Belmont, and she could very well win this, but I've been waiting for Love to get this kind of test, and she finally does. Maxfield's little sister, a late-blooming 4-year-old daughter of Medaglia d'Oro for Brendan Walsh, who's only run 4 times and has run 3 times here as a 4-year-old after running only once as a 3-year-old. But, man, she's been dominant. And not only has she been dominant, she's been doing it the right way. She's got natural speed. She's overcome adversity to a certain extent in a couple of those races where she just seems like she's undaunted out there, where she's been pressured but just remains relaxed. And she's going to be in a great position every step of the way over a racetrack that, can favor horses with her kind of running style. She's 5-1 in the morning line. Search results obviously inflating the prices of the rest of her competitors in here. I'm looking very forward to seeing what Love can do. I've been just ultra impressed with her, checking every single box in her 3 races in Kentucky, Keeneland, Churchill, and Ellis, respectively. Looking very forward to Love's stakes debut And I got to take on a good one in search results, but I think she might be up to the task.
I love your comments about her running style, too. You're right. Monmouth always seems to kind of play to those horses that are forwardly placed, and that's certainly her game. And what a weekend it could be for Godolphin if they could pull off a win there and then come back with wet paint at Saratoga and the Coaching Club American Oaks. It could be a massive day for Godolphin.
Yeah, they've had a few of those, and they utilize some of the better trainers around, and I get to see a lot of their horses, with Brendan and with Brad Cox over the fairgrounds meet in the winter, and it just carries on to the summer months, Kentucky, New York, et cetera. Yeah, they're certainly lined up for a big weekend. Doesn't always work out that way, but I'd rather be lined up for a big weekend than not.
Okay, so loved number 6 in that Molly picture for Joe Kristufek as his top pick in there, and another value play for those of you who are playing along at TwinSpires.com. We go to race number 12. That is the Grade 1 Haskell, a win and you're in for the Breeders' Cup Classic Division, and we get to see the return of a horse that many people thought was the horse to beat for the Derby at one point this spring, Arabian Night, and he does take on the Derby winner, Mage. Should prove to be a great showdown there.
Yeah, and takes on Tappa Trice, too, and I think this is a great race to play against Mage and play against Tappa Trice. I don't know how either one of the running styles suits Monmouth Park and the Haskell. I think, this might be, so to speak, a prep for the Travers for both of those horses. So that leaves you Arabian Night, who looks like a little bit of a standout on paper. He was awesome in the Southwest. Of course, that was over a sloppy track. His only other start was that dominant win at Keeneland on debut over Breeders' Cup weekend, where he was bet down and certainly ran to those 3 to 5 odds. But we haven't seen him since January. Extra Anejo, Steve Asmussen's handled this horse with kid gloves. I know when this horse was a 2-year-old, he thought he was his Kentucky Derby horse. And maybe he's his Haskell and Travers horse, because this horse, was dominant on debut at Keeneland in mid-October of his 2-year-old season. Didn't make it back to the races until May the 6th, Kentucky Derby weekend at Churchill. And he ran second that day, but he was severely compromised at the start that particular afternoon. And 6.5 furlongs isn't going to be his best distance moving forward. 1.5 turn mile last out at Ellis, and was absolutely dominant. A 1 with a perfect lead switch down the lane. Plenty left in the tank over Tallboy, who came back and ran a good second in his subsequent start. And it was 17 lengths back to the horse that ran third. Has natural speed from the gate, stretches out for Steve. Perfect timing for this opportunity for Extra Anejo. And another horse, like I mentioned earlier, with Loved, that should like the racetrack at Monmouth.
Were you surprised to see Arabian Night as the 5-2 morning line favorite over Mage and over Tappa Trice?
No, because Brad Thomas is sharp, man. This horse is going to get bet. People will bet Mage and bet Tappa Trice because they're the name commodities in the field, so to speak. But the people that bet real money, and Brad knows this, he's as sharp as they come, are going to bet Arabian Night. I mean, Arabian Night's probably going to be less than 2-1, I would guess. Extra Anejo, I think he's got him perfectly tabbed at 5-1. I think that's square and fair on him. I know there's been talk. Mage's connections didn't even decide until the last minute that they were even going to go. And Tappa Trice just doesn't seem to be suited, necessarily to Monmouth. And people see that. So long answer to your simple question, Mike. No, I'm not surprised at all.
Love it. Extra Anejo, Joe's top pick here in the Haskell. Steve Asmussen, Tyler Gaffalione, 5-1 on the morning line. So there are 3 value plays that Joe has given you on this Saturday morning. And Joe, let's recap. We start with the 8th at Ellis Park, and you'll go with number 1, Chasing Time at 8-1. The 10th at Monmouth, the Molly Pitcher, number 6, Loved at 5-1. And then the Haskell, race 12, number 7, Extra Anejo at 5-1. So 3 great value plays.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's interesting because Extra Anejo and Loved are stable male horses for me on TwinSpires and the TwinSpires app. It's a new feature that they recently launched. And what it does for you is anytime those horses in your stable male run, they alert you, and you can make one simple click and go right to those races, even in advance of the race, and make a wager on those on those particular horses. So great new feature. Loved an extra Eneo. Happened to be in my stable. They popped up. I was alerted about it. Not that I didn't know about it anyways, but in this particular case, those are named horses. But great new feature that TwinSpires has added. Make sure you check it out.
And there are always great promotions at TwinSpires. I talk about it every week with this show being sponsored by TwinSpires, but it seems like, week in and week out, it doesn't have to be a huge weekend like a Derby weekend or a Travers weekend or a Haskell weekend. There are always solid promotions that players can take advantage of when they go to TwinSpires.com.
And it doesn't have to be a major event or a major track either. There's great promotions on Mondays and Tuesdays and every day of the week. I got a couple of friends that have been playing on TwinSpires recently, and one of them got an extra $1,000 for hitting a pick 5 at Ellis. Another guy got an extra $1,000 for playing the Let It Ride promotion at Ellis. And, you're doing well, and then you get that extra gravy on top, which is added ammunition, or in one of those cases where you can actually take a withdrawal out of your account. Certainly nothing wrong with that. So a little bit of gravy on top of what you're doing with your day-to-day play certainly didn't hurt anybody.
Joe Kristufek, the TwinSpires Triple Play. Again, head over to TwinSpires.com to place your wagers on those 3 races we talked about. Bet them any way you like. Just make sure you're doing it at TwinSpires.com. Joe, appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend. Good luck at the windows. And I guess the next time we talk, the Chicago Bears and the Pittsburgh Steelers will both be in training camp and getting ready to make their runs to the Super Bowl to play each other.
Super Bowl for the Bears maybe a couple of years away, but at least for the first time in a while, we're going to be relevant. Looking very forward to it.
It should be a fun season. Appreciate it, Joe. Take care, and we'll talk again soon.
All right. Cheers, Mike. Have a good weekend, man.
All right. All the best. Joe Kristufek with the TwinSpires Triple Play here on HRRN. Coming up next, we turn it over to Kurt Becker for his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. This week, Kurt takes a look back at Kentucky Derby winner Fusaichi Pegasus. I think you're really going to enjoy that story. And then at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans. Tim Wilkin, stay with us. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There are plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet with live racing Friday through Sunday and simulcast opportunities 7 days a week. Come out and enjoy the Summit of Speed, the Florida Sire Stakes Series, and a whole lot more. Watch the action from our Trackside Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms restaurant with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his third dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
Colonial Downs summer racing season is here. Weekend racing returns every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday with a first post of 1:30 p.m. Back this year is our popular 12% takeout Pick 5, which is now offered twice daily. We're also introducing the all-new Old Dominion 6, a $1 traditional Pick 6 with a 15% takeout. Join us for our biggest days of the season on August 12th for the Colonial Downs Festival of Racing, which features the Grade 1 Arlington Million, and September 9th as we wrap up the season with the Virginia Derby. Colonial Downs, rich history, bright future.
Iowa's Festival of Racing at Prairie Meadows takes place on July 7th and 8th and features 8 thoroughbred stakes races. 4 great stakes races on Friday night, followed up by another 4 on Saturday, including the $250,000 Iowa Derby, the Grade 3 Iowa Oaks, and the Grade 3 Prairie Meadows Cornhusker Handicap. Post time for the first race on both days will be 6 p.m. Central. Experience the thrill of horse racing at Prairie Meadows, your favorite place to play. Visit prairiemeadows.com for more information.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He remains the most expensive horse ever purchased at public auction to win the Kentucky Derby, and he died earlier this year at the age of 26. His name was Fusaichi Pegasus. Foaled on April 12, 1997 at the Stone Farm of co-breeder Arthur Hancock III in Paris, Kentucky, Fusaichi Pegasus was a sleek bay colt by Mr. Prospector out of Angel Fever by Danzig. His sire ranked at the time as the #1 sire of stakes winners in North American history and had sired winners of both the Preakness and the Belmont Stakes, but had never sired a winner of the Kentucky Derby. Hancock recalled recently that he and co-breeder Stonerside Limited of Robert and Janice McNair had submitted a reserve bid of $1.4 million on their colt when taking him to the Keeneland July yearling sale in 1998. Hancock had nicknamed the colt Superman soon after he was born, saying he was strong, athletic, smart, and had a great deal of class. The colt's mother was a full sister to Preakness winner Pine Bluff, and the colt's full sister had sold at Keeneland as a weanling 2 years earlier for $1 million. The Keeneland summer sale was strong in 1998. Average price jumped 35% and the median rose 20%. Most popular among the offerings were superbly bred colts that might develop into stallion prospects. Seated in the arena and making only his second visit to Keeneland was Fusao Sakaguchi, a venture capitalist from Japan who had retained trainer John Ward as his advisor. On the night of July 21, 1998, the Mr. Prospector colt consigned by Stone Farm as agent entered the auction ring as the second-to-last yearling to be offered in the sale. And with Ward doing the bidding, Sakaguchi bought the colt for a sale-topping figure of $4 million. As for the name Sakaguchi would give his colt, it would be a combination of his own first name, Fusao, coupled with the Japanese word for #1. And of course, Pegasus would be chosen in honor of the winged horse from classical mythology. Ward would take the colt to Florida and guide him through the early stages of his training before sending him to California and trainer Neil Drysdale. Sakaguchi liked Drysdale because he had trained Horse of the Year A.P. Indy, adding that he liked the fact Drysdale had a straightforward demeanor. Fusaichi Pegasus would not make his debut until December of his 2-year-old year, running second by a neck at Hollywood Park to future graded stakes winner David Copperfield, a horse, incidentally, which had grown up with him in the fields of Stone Farm. In his second start, which came on January 2, 2000 at Santa Anita, Fusaichi Pegasus broke his maiden as the 1-5 favorite at 6 furlongs, with Kent DeSormo riding him for the first time. On February 19th, the colt would stretch to 1 1/16 at the same track to win an allowance as the 6-5 betting choice. And on March 19th, he made his stakes debut in the Grade 2 San Felipe Stakes, winning once again at 6-5 and defeating a field which included reigning juvenile champion Anise. For his final Kentucky Derby prep, Drysdale sent Fusaichi Pegasus to New York for the Wood Memorial, thereby avoiding a showdown with War Chant, another colt in his barn which was undefeated and would be running in the Santa Anita Derby. In his first trip outside California, Fusaichi Pegasus defeated 11 foes and won the Wood Memorial handily at odds of 4-5. Heading next to Churchill Downs, Fusaichi Pegasus went to the post as the 2-1 favorite for the 126th running of the Kentucky Derby. No post-time favorite had won the race since 1979, and this was a deep and talented crop. The date? Saturday, May 6, 2000. Dave Johnson gives us the call.
Wheel away takes command by a head more than ready on the inside, but here comes Fusaichi Pegasus with huge strides, gobbling up ground and getting the lead. Fusaichi Pegasus with Kent DeSormo in front, aptitude up for the place spot. Here's the finish. Fusaichi Pegasus wins it by a length and a half.
Before a crowd of 153,000 and in front of a national television audience, Fusaichi Pegasus had become the most expensive horse ever purchased at public auction to win the Kentucky Derby. It gave Drysdale a Derby winner in his first attempt, and it came at the end of a week which had seen Drysdale elected to the Hall of Fame. A Triple Crown was not meant to be, though, as Fusaichi Pegasus would run second in the Preakness 2 weeks later to Red Bullet. But the colt was syndicated for a reported $60 million, and at the end of the year would be retired to Ashford Stud in Kentucky for stallion duty, where he would eventually sire 6 champions worldwide. Sekaguchi once said that his colt had an inquisitive nature, which showed intelligence, and a rambunctious nature, which demonstrated a will to succeed. Journalist Steve Haskell described Fusaichi Pegasus as a horse with a stately manner and a magnificent stride. Someone else noted he was a star, and he knew it. Earlier this year, Fusaichi Pegasus died at the age of 26. Blessed with a tremendous physique, given a name from mythology, and boasting a $4 million price tag as a yearling, he carried a certain mystique during his days as a racehorse. And it's a mystique which has secured his place in racing history. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Virginia's horse racing and breeding industry is built on the talents, skills, labors, and passions of incredible people working in all parts of the Commonwealth. It supports 5,300 jobs that help create an economic impact of $542 million annually. Wager Virginia's showcase event this summer, the 9-week Colonial Downs Thoroughbred Race Meet, which runs through September 9th. It pays to breed or raise your horse in Virginia.
There are plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park during the Royal Palm Meet, with live racing Friday through Sunday and simulcast opportunities 7 days a week. Come out and enjoy the Summit of Speed, the Florida Sire Stakes Series, and a whole lot more. Watch the action from our Trackside Carousel Club, our Feast in 10 Palms restaurant with an elevated view of the track. For stake schedules, reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
They're coming inside the final eighth of a mile and randomized in complete command. Opening up to lead by 3. Just Catherine, a solid effort, but she's still 3 lengths behind, and it's going to be Randomized. Randomized has won the Wilton.
Randomized, the 3-year-old daughter of Darley Stallion Nyquist, took home top prize in the Wilton Stakes, going 1 mile on the dirt at Saratoga for trainer Chad Brown and owner Klarovich Stables, a $420,000 Keeneland September yearling. She earned a 97 buyer for her performance, which is the highest buyer for any 3-year-old filly at a mile or more this year. A winning effort, which makes Randomized your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Learn more about Nyquist and all the Darley Stallions by visiting DarleyAmerica.com.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
And here comes Tamarando, let loose on the outside. Past the 3/16's pole, Dance with Fate has the lead over Enterprising, a length away to Tamarando. And Infosec on the inside is 4th, it's Dance with Fate the leader. Tamarando grinding after him, Dance with Fate confronted by Tamarando. The Calbred Tamarando puts his head in front and wins the El Camino Real Derby over Dance Dance with Fate Enterprising. Fourth's either InfoSec or Puppy Manners. They were followed by Icy Ride, Clearaval, Wrap It Up, and Craftsman.
Tim Arando providing Hall of Famers Russell Bays and Jerry Hollendorfer with their final El Camino Real Derby win in 2014. Michael Rona had the call. There will be no opportunity for anyone to catch them at the top of the standings in that race, at least not at Golden Gate Fields. Dale and Tim share their thoughts on the closing of Golden Gate. Plus, for the first time in the 40-year history of the Breeders' Cup, the Classic will not be the final Breeders' Cup race when it is renewed at Santa Anita on November 5th. Is that right or wrong? And which return has Dale and Tim more fired up this weekend? Arabian Night or Nest? All of those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin. All presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, guys, a lot to talk about here, including that situation at Golden Gate. And as always, we welcome listener-submitted questions. We have a couple of those topics that come from Will in Las Vegas, Nevada this week, and we're going to get to those in just a second. But let's start by talking about Golden Gate and the announcement that came out this week by the Stronach Group that they will consolidate racing operations in Southern California by closing Golden Gate Fields, which is located in Northern California, at the end of the 2023 racing season. Tim, your thoughts on that announcement?
First off, you never want to see, there's been too many of them that's had, Arlington, Hialeah, Garden State Park, Suffolk, the list goes on and on. I mean, I get what the Stronach Group is doing. They want to increase the field size and race numbers at Santa Anita. But, I mean, these are people's lives they're trying to uproot. And are these people going to be able to move down there? And how many? There's like 1,000 horses up there at Golden Gate. Are they all going to be able to go down to Santa Anita? I don't think so. I just feel real bad for the trainers that have been there for years and years, and that's been their place of livelihood, the place where they're growing up their families and all that, and to have to uproot them. I just think that you're going to see a lot of these guys and gals having to get out of the business. Again, I understand from the business standpoint, but from a personal standpoint, I think it's horrible. I never want to see tracks close, especially one that's been around since, 1941?
It's strictly a real estate deal. It has nothing to do with consolidation. It will not help Santa Anita. It's strictly that the property there, if you've ever been there, is one of the most beautiful spots in the world. And when the business becomes worth less than the actual property, there's a problem. And that's a big problem in racing today. You could look at Gulfstream Park. It's probably worth twice as much as a development than it is a racetrack. And don't be surprised if it's next. It's strictly a real estate deal. It has nothing to do with helping racing, consolidating. It'll all end up the same. California has a lot of problems with racing. We need California. Even if the racing leaves, even though those people that bet in California with one of the largest populations in the country, we'll be all right for a little while. But how do you develop new players? How do you get people that want to go to the racetrack? How do you get people that like horse racing? All the players that were developed there. I mean, it's just a shame. I hate to see it go. I mean, Calder is one thing, even Hollywood Park. Aqueduct will be the next to fall. But at least you still have racing in those cities. Northern California now has zero racing. So when the future comes, we won't be developing new players from up there. It's a domino effect. It's sad. And I think that's a great place. If you hadn't been there, it's a wonderful place. And I can understand how valuable the property is, but you just hate to see racing leaving a total jurisdiction, a total area. It's a sad day for racing.
Yeah, and it comes on the heels of Arlington Park, which, of course, that was a sad situation there. I know, so many people still longing for the days of spending the summer at Arlington Park. Golden Gate Field's going to be in the same light. Dale, did you ever run many horses at Golden Gate?
I ran one horse out there, and I don't think we ran very well, but the highlight of the time was I went out there myself. I loved the place. Couldn't believe the area. It's such a beautiful area. And but the reason I flew out there myself was, for one, I wanted to meet Russell Bays. I'd never met him. And I went in the jocks room, met Russell, got to say thank you for everything you've done for racing. And I'm glad I did. I'm glad I got to say I was there one time.
Yeah, it's a cool place, and it's going to be missed. There's no doubt about it. And, Tim, you heard Dale mention Gulfstream Park and how valuable that piece of property is. What do you think? Is there a chance that at some point we could see tracks like Gulfstream and, who knows, some of these other major tracks that are set up on beautiful areas that the real estate is worth so much money? Do you think that there is a chance that we could see those tracks go by the wayside at some point?
I hope not. Like prime real estate, people want it. But I just can't imagine the Gulfstream Park would go away. I mean, would the people down there allow that to happen? I mean, it's the home of the Florida Derby, for God's sakes. I just can't see that going away.
Tim, could you imagine Hollywood going away? Could you imagine Golden Gate going away? I mean, and you know what's next? You know what property is probably worth more than any as a development and not a racetrack? Santa Anita. There's probably not a better piece of property in the world than where Santa Anita sits.
But I just can't see those tracks going away. I mean, I know racing is struggling, but I just cannot, being a racing fan and being associated with it for so long, I just can't imagine the sport without those venues. I just can't. It'd be like tearing down Wrigley Field or Fenway Park. I just can't see it.
Will in Las Vegas, I mentioned that Will kind enough to submit a couple topics for you guys here this morning. And he, sticking with the Golden Gate theme, he wants to know, what does the closing of Golden Gate do to the jockey colony based in Northern California, and how many riders will go to Southern California due to the connections that they're riding for, and what impact will that have on the riders currently in Southern California? Dale, you want to take that one first?
That's a good question, and I don't know. I tell you the truth, I don't know who's riding out there right now. I don't know who's riding in California. It's a whole different world than it used to be. The Eddie D's and the Lafitte guys and the Chris McCarrons and Bill Shoemakers, they're all, that's history. I don't know any guys out there anymore. It's a whole different world. And, I mean, they'll find a place to go, but the more consolidation, the less opportunity.
Dale's exactly right. These guys that are up and riding the Golden Gate, they want to move down to Santa Anita if they have to get people to ride for, and if the people that they rode for up in Golden Gate aren't moving south, what are they going to do? I mean, it's the effect of uprooting and having to leave and starting over. And are you going to be able to make a dent in the the Southern California jockey colony? I think that's a big ask. And I think some of these guys are just going to have to, if they really want to keep doing it, they're going to have to probably move to God knows where and try to keep their careers going. But it's tough to go from Golden Gate and try to be a big player on a major circuit like Santa Anita. I just think it'd be really, really hard.
Here's a problem. It's not about the jockey. It's not about the trainer. At the end of the day, it's about the owner. We cannot get away from regional ownership. And when somebody, I bet 80% of the people on horses in Northern California live in Northern California. And they own horses because they get to go to the racetrack with their friends, have fun, watch their horse run. They get to go out in the mornings, watch their horse train. There are people that aren't going to buy horses in the future if they have to be at Santa Anita. That's a long ways away. Even though it's in the same state, it's a long ways away. And they'll eventually fade out. If they're really doing it to try to consolidate, that's a terrible business plan. But the truth is, it's a real estate deal. That real estate is worth too much money.
All right, we're going to go to the Breeders' Cup for the next couple of topics, and Will submits a second question here for you guys. And He says, with the Breeders' Cup at Santa Anita this year, will we see more connections point toward the Del Mar meet? And is there a significant advantage? And Dale, this is probably a good one for you. Is there a significant advantage for runners to ship to California for the final prep, or is it better to keep the horse on its usual circuit and ship in right before the race, right before the Breeders' Cup?
You know, even though it's two different racetracks, it's a very good question. There was always a problem with going to California and running, and there was always the question, when do I come in? But the right answer is either come in real early, get used to the sea level, the environment, the climate, and you run, or you come in right on top of the race 3 or 4 days out. And before all the jet lag sets in on the horses. I don't really think there's a big benefit on going and running at Del Mar, but I do think there is a benefit on either getting there early or real late. And I've always preferred to get to Santa Anita early and work over the racetrack. So I don't think you'll see a big difference. I don't think you'll see guys flocking out there to run one time at Del Mar, then ship up to Santa Anita. I think you'll see people doing the same pattern they've always done. But that's a well-thought-out question because, you know, a lot of people think, well, it's two different racetracks. Yeah, but it's two totally different environments. You go from sea level to wherever you're coming from at a higher sea level around the country. And it's a good question, but I don't think you'll see a lot of change.
Obviously, I'm not a trainer, but from my perspective of covering this sport for so long, I don't see why a trainer, an owner, would want to get his horse off of his schedule. If he's scheduling like, you know, I'm going to run in, I want to run in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, I want to run the Woodward, or maybe the Jockey Club Gold Cup's his last start before the Breeders' Cup and get the time, but train at your own track. And I just don't see going to Del Mar. I mean, I get what Dale said about, you know, adjusting the climate and all that, but I don't know what maybe I'm all wrong, but maybe I don't see the advantage of going to run at Del Mar and then going to Santa Anita. That's I wouldn't get that. If you can go to Santa Anita and train, maybe that's something different if you want to get there that early. But I don't know if you'd want to stay there all summer.
Will, great questions. Appreciate you sending those in. If you have a question or a topic for Dale and Tim and you want me to ask it here on the show, email the question to me, mike@horseracingradio.net. So many of you are doing that now, and it is wonderful. They enjoy getting your questions. mike@horseracingradio.net, and I will get those worked in the weeks ahead. All right, it is that time of the show now where we say hello to our good friend and Hall of Famer Nick Zito and find out if the following statement is right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Okay, guys, going with one, because I think this is going to be a involved conversation here. Breeders' Cup announced their television coverage schedule this week, and for the first time in the 40-year history of the World Championships, the Classic will not be the final Breeders' Cup race. There will be 2 more Breeders' Cup races after the Classic in order for the Classic to fit into the NBC coverage window before they cut away to Big Ten football. Is this right, or is it just all wrong?
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right?
Timmy?
I'm going all wrong on this one. It seems to me that NBC is really starting to wean itself away from horse racing. You know, they got rid of they didn't do the Belmont this year, and Fox did, and Fox seems to be really excited about horse racing. And to me, it seems NBC is not. I mean, to not have the Breeders' Cup as the last race, that's the race that everyone, you know, that's the final firework of the day. And I mean, it would be like going to the Masters and playing the 18th hole first and then going the rest of the way. But I think that the Breeders' Cup, when the Classic is run, that's the culmination of a huge weekend, and that should be the last race. I know NBC wants to go to football and all that, and maybe the average sports fan would rather watch football than the Breeders' Cup. But the Breeders' Cup has always been I think, I'm biased, but I think the Breeders' Cup Classic has always been a must-watch event, and it should be the one that caps the day. I just think that, you know, after those, it'll be the last race on NBC, but then there'll be 2 races after that. So maybe the fans that watch the race will think it's the last race, even though there's 2 more to come that they won't see.
Yeah, I think it's wrong too, but media guides everything. We need the media. It may be time to get off the network. Fox is doing a great job promoting our sport. People want to watch horse racing, they'll find us on Fox. It may be time to move on. I'll say one thing, it'll make it easier to get out of the parking lot after the last.
Yeah, it will. The two races afterwards, the final one is going to now be the Breeders' Cup Sprint. It won't be seen on NBC, but it is the Breeders' Cup Sprint that will wrap it up instead of the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's a shame, guys, that on the 40th anniversary of the Breeders' Cup World Championships that we wouldn't see the Classic as the final race. I think there's always something special about building to the Classic. Not that the other races don't have significant meaning, but there's just something special about building to that crescendo at the end of the coverage and at the end of the day. Don't you think?
No doubt.
Very much so. No doubt.
Yep. All right, we'll welcome Nick back next week for I Ask, They Answer, and Right or Wrong. We'll do that again. But, guys, I want to move on because we have one more topic to get to. Then we're going to talk about what's coming up next week with the Showdown 2, which actually begins the first Saturday in August. We'll do that here in just a minute. But the final topic here, this is one not listener submitted. I came up with this one because I was getting excited looking at some of the races this weekend. And you have Arabian Night, you have Nest. Arabian Night, many people thought he was going to be the top Kentucky Derby contender before he went to the sidelines this spring. He returns in the Haskell. You have champion filly Nest making her long-awaited 4-year-old debut tomorrow in the Chuvie with the great showdown against Clairiere. Which return, Nest or Arabian Night, gets you more excited this weekend? Dale?
I'm going to Arabian Night. Bob at the Haskell, he's awful tough. I think he's beaten me twice there, and he's hard to beat. If he's bringing him back in the Haskell, he really likes him. That would be my bet of the weekend. He's an awfully good horse, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with him.
I mean, I like both these races, but if I have to pick one, I might go with Arabian Night too, because beginning of this year, he was supposed to be the Triple Crown Wonder horse. I mean, won his first start last November by 7 1/4, and then he blew the doors off everybody in the Southwest by 5 1/2 on the sloppy track, and then he just he was with Tim Yaktine then because Bob wasn't able to have the horse for Derby points, so it was, and Tim Yaktine just took him out of training for something he didn't like something, and that turned into a 6-month break where we didn't see him. He's now back with Bob Baffert, and I mean, I think this horse is really the real deal, and it'll be really interesting to see him go up against the likes of Kentucky Derby winner Mage and Tappet Trice, and to me that's the race that really gets the juices going. Nest is going up against Clairiere at Saratoga today to Sunday, and that Nest did a lot of good things at Saratoga last year, winning the Coaching Club Oaks and the Alabama by open lengths, and Clairiere is no slouch. That'll be a good race, even though there's 4 in it. But I'll go with Arabian Night.
Tim, if Arabian Night wins the Haskell convincingly later today, and he does that off the layoff, he remains undefeated, is he the favorite for the Travers?
I don't know if he comes to the Travers. Bob has said he's not sure if he would bring him to the Travers because he's already, thinking about maybe reincarnate and the Preakness winner National Treasure for the Travers. I don't think there's any guarantee that if Bob wins the Haskell with Arabian Night that he's going to come here. It's not the easiest thing to do, winning the Haskell and then coming up here and winning the Travers. And he's tried it before and deal with it hasn't worked. So
Keen Ice put an end to that.
Keen Ice put an end. Who trained?
Yeah,
do you remember?
Now you boys, you know what you're talking about.
Hey, Dale, you ever have fun with Bob when you see him and rib him a little bit about beating American Pharoah?
I might have threw a few jabs at him, but I will tell you this. The first call I took after the race was Bob Baffert congratulating me, so he's a class act.
Great stuff. Hey, let's do this. We have just a few minutes left, but I want to let you guys weigh in on something that happened this week. This is just kind of a bonus I'm throwing in there for you. 20 years ago, Funnyside won the Kentucky Derby. He passed away this week, and he was a special horse to so many people. So Tim, why don't you start? Just share your favorite funny side memory or your thoughts about what was a really great time in thoroughbred racing.
It really was. The horse was born in Saratoga Springs, where I am, and it became funny side mania after he won the Derby and the Preakness. I mean, they were selling funny side light beer. They were selling funny side ice cream. There was a funny side store in downtown Saratoga that just sold everything funny side, only funny side. And, it made rock stars out of his as Jack Knowlton of Saratoga Stable calls it, the local yokels. I mean, they traveled around to all the Triple Crown races in a yellow school bus because they couldn't afford the bigger modes of transportation of the deep-pocketed Kentucky-bred owners, and they got a huge kick out of that. And Funny Side was, a tough horse, and he caught lightning in a bottle for those 2 weeks. Who knows what would have happened in the Belmont if it was a fast track. Empire Maker, who was a better horse, beat him in the Belmont. But you can never take away what Funny Side did in Kentucky and Baltimore. It was just a phenomenal story at that time.
And you know what else? The connections were such likable people. Barkley, Jack, Jose Santos, such likable people that everyone loved. And they are good people. What you see is what you get from all of them. And the way that Barkley loved that racehorse is what will always stick in my mind. I wasn't doing as good then as I have in the past, but hanging out with Barkley, watching him graze him every day, how he took care of that horse, you could just tell he loved that horse. So
don't forget Robin Small and the exercise rider.
And Rob
with him every day.
Yes, every day Robin was there. So rest in peace.
Yeah, amen to that. Rest in peace. Funny Side, certainly going to be missed, and thanks for the memories. All right, well, if you think you have what it takes to compete with Dale and Tim, and you want to square off with them, all you have to do is prove it. We're giving you the chance now because the Showdown 2 starts August 5th, and it very well could include you. We're going to choose one lucky listener who's going to be drawn at random on next Saturday morning's program, and that person will have the chance to take on Dale and Tim in the Showdown 2. You'll get a chance to draft your own 5-horse stable, actually 6 because you're going to choose an alternate, but 6 horses. And based on the points that they earn, you could be declared the champion over Dale and Tim. And guys, if people want to enter, and we've received several entries already, they have until this Thursday, July 27th at noon Eastern. They email their entry to me, Mike at horseracingradio.net. And again, we'll do that random drawing on the program next week. But I've been asking people to let me know why they think they have what it takes to beat you, and simply because that actually has no bearing on whether they're going to get drawn out or not, obviously. But I wanted to get a little smack talk going, and this might be my favorite one. One listener who's going to be entered says he quoted Tim Wilkin from a couple of weeks ago when Timmy said, "They're not going to beat me, and they probably aren't going to beat Dale. I hope the listeners realize that. It'd be like them going up against Shohei Ohtani." And that was Timmy's direct quote. Well, he submitted his entry, and he says, "When I crush these guys in the racing draft competition, this is what I want quoted on my winner's plaque." That might be my favorite one so far.
Can I take this first?
Go, Dale.
Bring it on. Anybody, if any of you amateurs out there think you can beat us, come on. And if you do win, you got dinner at Jeff Ruby's with me on me.
Ooh.
In Louisville, Kentucky. You got to get there on your own, but we'll have a good time. It'll be worth traveling to. Believe me, you come to Louisville with me.
The stakes just got a little higher.
Yes.
How I beat you? I didn't get no dinner in the first one.
And you're not going to.
How come?
Because I think you cheated.
How could I cheat? The horses did all the work.
You got extra draft choice. Your horse went to the wayside. You should have never got a draft choice.
No, it's an equine disabled list. You got to be able to bring another player up from the minors. Not that they're minor league horses.
Those were rules that changed after the draft.
Yeah, well, that's not happening this time. We will have rules in place. Everything is already laid out. They are posted on our website at horseracingradio.net. You will draft 5 horses, 1 alternate horse that will only be used in the instance that one of your original 5 ends up going to the sidelines for an illness or an injury. You can submit that one, but once you put them in, those are the 5 horses you go with the rest of the way. There are no other changes, and that will simplify that, and the one with the most points at the end wins. And you can go to horseracingradio.net to see all the rules and the scoring. And then, as Dale said, he's throwing out a dinner at Jeff Ruby's in Louisville, Kentucky. If you get yourself there, he'll treat you to dinner if you can beat Dale and Tim. But the showdown, too, coming up August 5th. You have until this Thursday at noon Eastern. Submit your entry to Mike at horseracingradio.net. All right, guys, time to wrap up the show with our West Point of the Week. It's all presented by West Point Thoroughbreds, and we'll remind people that they can experience the lifestyle of thoroughbred racehorse ownership with the gold standard in racing partnerships for over 30 years. You just text HORSE to 66866 to learn about ownership with West Point Thoroughbreds. Message and data rates may apply. Timmy, what is your West Point of the Week?
Mike, the one race we didn't talk about going to be at Saratoga today is the Coaching Club American Oaks, the 3-year-old fillies. Pretty mischievous who won the Kentucky Oaks here, but the beaten favorite wet paint is, as well as Who's Your Filly, who was supposed to be who was anointed as a wonder horse earlier in the year by Tom Amos, the trainer, is in that race too. Let's see what she does. I'm looking forward to that one.
All right, my point of the day is Terry Finley from West Point Thoroughbreds had his 3rd grandchild 2 days ago, and I just want to congratulate him and Ryan and Allie for having a wonderful baby boy. Everybody's healthy and happy. My other second, I want 2 of them today. I want to say Haskell Day, one of my very favorite days of the year. No one treats you better than Mama's Park when you go to race there. If you haven't been there, it's a better. If you like horse racing, make sure you stop by Mama's. The way these tracks are dropping off, who knows?
All right, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin. I ask, they answer. We return next week, and we do it all over again, guys. Enjoy the weekend, enjoy the races, and good luck.
Thank you, fellas. Talk to you next week.
All right, if you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim debate, just do what Will in Las Vegas did and email that to me, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and I'll work it in for you in the weeks ahead. I Ask, They Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. I'm back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Hi, Tony. Hey, Matthew. There's a reason why Tony's Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony's Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at TonySteaksandSeafood.com.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Well, John, the stage is set for the final transaction.
That's right, Joe. Heather's moment has arrived, and you just hope all that training pays off.
Heather lays down her purchase, but Randy rings it up as slowly as he can.
He is a wily veteran.
It gives Heather's eyes the chance to wander.
Uh-oh.
Yep, she's looking at the cigarettes.
There's nothing good back there. Quit now, and in 5 years, your odds of getting certain cancers drop 50%.
Meanwhile, Randy's stone-faced. He's giving nothing away. He just stands there, wetting his cashier's finger on that sponge.
Heather toes the rubber.
Here we go. Heather's arm is in motion. But instead of pointing at the back wall, she just grabs the gum off the counter.
That's a slick move.
Heather back. She is out of there. Even Randy tips his cap to Heather. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally wants you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
My battle buddies and I attended the NHL Stadium Series at Yankee Stadium. We had never been there before, and 2 of us had never seen a hockey game. Man, we had the time of our lives. It was great therapy. Vet Tix, we can't thank you enough.
Every empty seat at a concert, a game, motorsports, or a play is a missed opportunity to say thanks to a veteran and service member. We can help. We can give our veterans a special event where they too can create their own cherished memories. Find out how by visiting www.vettix.org. That's www.vettix.org. Find out how you can make a difference in a veteran's life.
Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, is the Brisnet.com call-in show. It's your chance to call in and let the Horse Racing Radio Nation know what's on your mind. Call us at 888-966-HRRN. That's 888-966-4776. And discuss the topics you choose in the world of thoroughbred racing. The Brisnet.com call-in show on Sirius 216, XM 204, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, don't forget there is one website that is the industry's go-to site for racing, breeding, sales, and news. It is bloodhorse.com. You get everything from breaking news to race results, race replay videos, leading earners lists, and much, much more. It's all at bloodhorse.com, and they do a fantastic job. It's the homepage on my computer, and I reference it every single day. Well, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible, including that fun segment with Dale and Tim you just heard on I Ask, They Answer, Kurt Becker for a stroll through racing history, and Joe Kristufek for joining me with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Covered a lot of ground, talked about Saratoga, talked about Woodbine, talked about Monmouth. It's a great day of racing. Enjoy it, everybody. Huge weekend coming up. Enjoy the races. Good luck at the windows. If you missed any portion of the show, head to our website, horseracingradio.net, to check out the podcast and do it on every podcast platform. However you get your podcast, listen to Horse Racing Radio Network. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studios, and to Chauncey for handling all of our social media again this morning. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Go Steelers.